Hello and welcome to the regular business meeting of the District of Squamish for Tuesday, July 16th. Holland Squalin Quist Squamish Okmeo. Welcome to the Squamish Nation Traditional Territory. Please be advised that this council meeting is being live streamed, recorded, and will be available to the public to view on the District of Squamish website following the meeting. If you have any concerns, please notify the corporate officer present at the meeting. In this case, that's Carrie Wells. Could I have someone move adoption of the agenda, please? Moved by Councillor French, second by Councillor Hamilton. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. So our first order of business under delegations, we have Squamish Helping Hands with a proclamation request for Overdose Awareness Month. So I will invite Miss Lori Pyne, Executive Director of Squamish Helping Hands, to, I think we might want you at the podium is going to be your best, No, that's all good. I think that's the spot. There we go. The floor is yours.
Hi, everybody. I'm honored to be here, and I'm honored to do this incredible work I do on the beautiful lands of the Squamish Omeom. I'm really here today just to encourage your understanding and participation in an International Overdose Awareness Day, which is happening on August 31st. We are doing an event on August 30th in Function Park. We're doing it on the 30th in solidarity with the rest of the corridor, are also honoring it on the 30th. So Friday the 30th. As everyone knows, overdose affects everyone from grieving families to spontaneous first responders to our staff. And it is far reaching and it's indiscriminatory. This year, my little prop I have is Together We Can. And that's the slogan for this year. And it obviously speaks to the power of community when we all stand together. And I know that a lot of you know that we have the Community Action Team, which is the Sea to Sky Community Action Team. And we work through the corridor with initiatives from Community Action Initiative to raise awareness and destigmatize drug deaths. So this year, the Overdose Awareness Day, the goal is to call for change in drug policies. It's to remember the people that have lost their lives. It's to acknowledge the grief felt by family and friends that are left behind. And it's to end the stigma of drug-related deaths. Drug-related deaths are the leading cause of death in BC for people between the ages of 10 and 59. A single leading cause of death. Vancouver Coastal Health and Fraser Coastal Health make up 56% of the people that passed from overdose in 2023. So it's happening in our community. As you all know, the overdose prevention site is on your property. I brought some statistics from last month that I want to share. So there was 2,327 visits last month to that OPS. 1,507 were unique individuals that visited that site. I don't know if most of you know, but the trend is going to smoking and safely consuming smoke inhalation. It's quite a lot more than intravenous. It's 2,000 smoking visits. Injecting was only 300. Squamish is very fortunate to have a safe inhalation site. They're very hard to find in BC because of the locations. Ours allows for that, so it's pretty amazing. Naloxone was administered 12 times. There was 17 overdoses, 6 of which 911 was called. People transferred to hospital was 2. The number of snacks distributed in pounds was 170 pounds of food. Also was shared with those community members. Service provider connections, other service providers, not Squamish Helping Hands, were 24. And I love this OPS quote of the month. I never met a donut I couldn't eat. So that's what's happening over at the OPS. So again, I just want to share that we have this life-saving service in our midst, how important it is to us. There's call for a 24-hour OPS. But unfortunately, in the last month, we've had to close 3 afternoons because we haven't had staffing to fulfill it safely. And I've also been working with Squamish Nation that are really calling for a mobile OPS to get out the valley because those individuals aren't making it in. So I'm very sensitive to that as well. So on Friday the 30th, it's 11 to 3. It's in Junction Park. We'll be serving food from our kitchen at Squamish Helping Hands. We've got Squamish First Nations coming with a booth, Turning Point, the Foundry, which is Sea to Sky Community Services. We've got Squamish Mental Health coming. We will have naloxone training going. We're hoping to have First Nations Health Authority also there, but we're also going to have an OPS booth. Well, we will have some workers from the OPS and people with lived experience that will be there to share. Those are really all the things I wanted to say. As far as the proclamation goes, you know, I was talking with a team member today, and it really only means something if we're acting. And you know, we can fly the flags at half-mast on that day to acknowledge, but unless people are understanding and participating and really living and believing in it, the half-mast flags don't really mean anything. And so I'm just here to invite you all to come. And if you choose to make a proclamation, I have a template for you provided by International Overdose Awareness Day campaign. And that's it. That's all I got.
Thank you very much, both
You're
for the
welcome.
presentation and for everything that you do.
Thank you.
Do you mind, I'm curious about the template. Do you mind passing? Can you?
I do have it.
can you
Yeah,
share it?
sure. Yep.
The recommendation we had, or the suggestion we had, was proclaim Overdose Awareness Month in August. But I think I like this, focusing on this day and getting folks out on the day. Okay.
Do you want, how about those stats? Do you want those stats?
Okay, hold on. We'll just go right. I think here, this one is good. The proclamation piece. And before we do that, we'll have some questions, Council. Thank you.
Thank you. A bit of a self-focused question here. My naloxone kit has expired.
Yes.
I assume there's training available before the 30th, and I'm just wondering if you can share when we can get new kits and a reminder of training and so on.
Sure. So we're doing training Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. at the overdose prevention site. We also have a team of people that we've been doing it at several businesses in the downtown, actually, most recently. And we can arrange that if you need. Megan Latimer, we also did a few lunch and learns with your staff here, but you can come to our building anytime and get naloxone kits anytime, 24 hours a day. Thank you for asking. Excellent question. Do not store it in your car because it will go bad quicker.
Any other, Councillor French?
I too need a naloxone kit. I gave mine away to someone who needed it, and I haven't replenished my supply yet. So I'm curious to know. I was wow, amazing. Thank you. Some overdose prevention sites offer testing to determine what exactly is in substances. Is that offered at our site here?
So thanks for asking. Great question. We partner with Whistler Community Services. They come down once a month. They are doing more testing here in one day than they do in Whistler in an entire month. This is something from our participants. They hear that they would love to see. I do believe in the last Thursday they did, I think, 17 tests. They are all coming out with all different things, but fentanyl is certainly in them for certain. I think what we're seeing in the drug supply now are things called benzodiazepines that are actually working the opposite of fentanyl, and naloxone is proving not to work quite as well. But a spectrometer is about a $50,000 investment and is something for certain that we would advocate strongly for at Squamish Helping Hands.
Thank you for that, and thank you for all you do.
Thanks.
Any other questions? I have the resolution here, which I edited slightly just to, it's quite a broad template. So here's the motion that I would like to put forward. Whereas the District of Squamish does affirm and acknowledge the harm and hardship caused by drug overdose, and whereas we recognize the purpose of International Overdose Awareness Day as remembering loved ones lost to overdose and ending the stigma of drug-related deaths, and whereas we resolve to play our part in reducing the toll of overdose in our community, whereas we affirm that the people affected by overdose are our sons and daughters, our mothers and fathers, our brothers and sisters, and deserving of our love, compassion, and support. Therefore, the District of Squamish proclaims August 31st, 2024 as International Overdose Awareness Day. Is there a seconder for that motion? Seconded by Councillor Greenlaw. Thank you very much for, again, for all the work that you do and for bringing this forward. And it's just so important that we continue to do this work to destigmatize the addiction, really, and drug use. And I think I heard that our mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, and are unprotected consumers. And I think that was a really interesting way of framing this. There are substances that are really challenging, and you need to be mindful of in other contexts. The alcohol is labeled and controlled. You know what you're buying when you get it. Same with tobacco, and so on. And this I think is an important step under that path to have some protections for our family members and community members that that are unprotected at this point. So thank you for all the work that you do. I'm happy to support this, and I'll do my very best to be there on the day. Any other comments on? Anyone else want to comment on this?
Comment?
Sure.
I learned the phrase you just shared. I learned a phrase from Musqueam First Nations individual a couple weeks ago, and I use the word vulnerable and marginalized quite often in my work, and she suggested I use equity deserving. So I'd like to share that all with you too.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor Greenlaw, did you have a comment?
Oh yeah, I just wanted to also speak in support of the motion and thank you again for all the difficult work that you do. It's so shocking to hear that overdoses are such a huge portion of our deaths every year, and that information, I was just kind of looking it up as you were talking, that information isn't very readily available, which speaks to the stigma around it, right? And it's just I feel like as a society we're just kind of moving away from that shame-based approach to addiction and to drug use and starting to move towards more compassion and acceptance and having honest conversations about it. So I really appreciate any work done in that avenue to just kind of raise that awareness. So thank you.
Okay. Seeing no other comments, I'll call the question. All in favor? Supported unanimously. Thank you very much, Council, and thank you for bringing that forward. So next up, we have Squamish Days Lager Sports Association. Jacqulin McNicol, as the president, is here, and you can, if you have something you want to pass out first, that's okay. Yeah, there's some. We've been handed a sample proclamation that I assume was made in advance of the August 1st, 1973 edition of Squamish Days Lager Sports. So just to add some commentary for those not in the room, go ahead.
Read it. Thank you very much for having me here. Speaking is not my favorite thing to do, so appreciate this. Just wanted to first point out the proclamation that everyone has in front of you there. It's from 1973, August 1st. And I thought it was interesting to see that because there's a lot of new people in Squamish. A lot of people still don't know about the Squamish Days Festival. So to see this, I was not born then, but it says the Corporation of the District of Squamish, Squamish Days, whereas the forest industry is a vital interest to our community, and whereas the forest industry forms an integral part of our recreation and livelihood, and whereas we in Squamish like nothing better than a good time, I hereby proclaim the weekend of August 3rd to 5th as Squamish Days, and on behalf of all of us, welcome visitors and competitors coming to enjoy our hospitality. So pretty sweet for sure. And I think I'm here for the same reason. Can't do that math, but I think like 51 years later. So on behalf of the Squamish Days Lager Sports Association, I respectfully request that the District of Squamish recognize the 67th Annual Squamish Days Lager Sports Festival as an event of municipal significance, and once again, 51 years later, proclaim August 1st to 4th as Squamish Days. For us, being able to continue a tradition for 67 years is a testament to the festival's significance to the community of Squamish and all involved. When the lager sports competition was first held in 1958 to celebrate the province's centennial, the one-day event was organized from volunteers with the same passion and dedication that we see in our roughly 250 volunteers, additional sponsors, competitors, and returning attendees. While we navigate the current crisis of the forest industry and the startling cost of living across the country and elsewhere, we were still able to raise a record number of sponsorship this year and continue to see our volunteer base grow. Our festival is a favorite to countless people, friends, and random people who come up to us in the grocery store and say, like, we can't wait. It's the best weekend of the year, and they get to celebrate with each other, raise a toast to being a part of our continued history and a positive impact that the festival brings. Being only a handful of associations who run 100% without any paid staff, 100% of our festival profits are able to go back to Squamish Days and the 6 local nonprofits we share with, or partner with, who are the Elks, the Curling Club, the Rotary, Squamish Legion, House Sound Marine Search and Rescue, and the Squamish Valley Equestrian Association. Last year, each of those local nonprofit groups received $8,220.04, as well as the countless other donations made to local nonprofits through the parade and a new Forestry Education Initiative Scholarship Fund that we launched. So if anyone knows anyone who wants to apply, please apply now. The festival to us means giving back and to give thanks to those who started it 67 years ago. It shows we're just proud to be a part of Squamish. It's an amazing community. We're fortunate to live here and contribute to it. This proclamation, if approved, is a continued way to show thanks to those before us, the multi-generational families in Squamish who spend their summer evenings and weekends and pretty much every other waking moment of their lives preparing for the festival. And it's a way of showing that hard work and dedication can lead to 67 years of success and prosperity to our community. So without further ado, I thank you all for your time. I didn't grow up in Squamish, but being here and being able to continue this tradition is one of the most important things in me. I see what it means to people. I see that people continue to come out, and I hope to continue the tradition for another 67 years, probably not through me volunteering all the time, but others. So thank you. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Ms. McNicol while we have her? Councillor French?
Usually about this time, the volunteer numbers are being calculated and somebody is saying, I could use a few more bodies. Could you use some more volunteers?
More volunteers. We're likely going to have a work party down at the grounds this weekend. We've got a lot done this week, but we will never turn down volunteers. it's a good time. People bring their friends, their family, and it's a really positive place to be. I know some of you here have actually come by over the last few days, so we appreciate that and always welcome to see more. And we would love to just have anyone come by and we can show you all the preparations that go into it, because it's pretty amazing, all that comes with lathing 120 blocks and putting up falling trees and things that you don't really think of when you're sitting up there in the bleachers. So by all means, yes. Yeah.
And have to plan my long weekend, and John Dranka's legendary beef sandwiches always play a big part in that planning over the BC Day long weekend. So I think it's a little different this year. Can you give us the details on the Rotary Beef Barbecue and how one gets one's hands on?
So we're awaiting our exemption to have our beef from the fire department right now. But as we will get that, the beef will only be sold at the festival. So you'll have to show up. On Saturday, the lineups are shorter. It means you get your beef faster and you have a way better chance of it not selling out as soon. So for everyone who wants a traditional 67-year-old sandwich, come on Saturday, but come Sunday as well. We have 80 timber trainers, local timber trainers in our timber training club right now. They train year round, and the majority of them will be participating Saturday. So another great reason to come out and have a beef sandwich and cheer them on.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Yeah.
And to be clear, it's the recipe that's 67 years old, not the sandwiches themselves. They are
No,
fresh.
no, they wouldn't last that long because they're so tasty.
Yeah, thank you for that additional clarity, Councillor French. Any other questions? Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Anderson.
As it turns out, 1973, the copy of the proclamation that we have here was the first year that the event was called Squamish Days, plural. Previously it had been Squamish Logger Sports Day, but as we all know, it's bigger than Logger Sports, and it extends from Thursday evening, if I'm not mistaken, Ms. McNicol, through to Monday with all kinds of family and fun events through those 5 days. And this was already the tradition launched in 1973. It's more than Logger Sports. It's for the whole family, and it's throughout the community.
Nothing more than fun thing in mind. So next year I will. But yeah, our festival, it's not just logger sports. I mean, we continue to try adding things too as we get more volunteers. It kicks off at the golf course with the kettle boil lumberjack chili challenge, allowing local businesses, new businesses to showcase their chili making, kids fest, bed races, chair carving, everything. It's incredible. I mean, we see probably over the 4 days, I would estimate, we're going to do a study like that study that Sorka did, which was super awesome, just to see how much it does contribute to the community. I mean, it's sold out, but there's so much else going on in town. But yeah, we probably, over the 4 days, I would estimate about 20,000 people between all the events. So it's a lot.
Okay. If there's no further questions, we've been asked for a proclamation here, which I will move if there's a second by Councillor French. I'll be brief. Squamish likes nothing better than a good time, and Squamish Days is that. So thank you for bringing this forward. And the volunteer opportunities exist year round. But I know that there's a sort of a focal point as in the run up. So lots of help needed still. And if it's something that anyone's interested in participating, I know Jacqulin and her team would be happy to hear from you. So happy to make this proclamation. Thank you. Any other comments? I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. I have to go back and volunteer now. So
yeah. Thank you. Okay, next up, we have consideration of unscheduled public attendance. So if anyone has a matter that they would like council to address prior to the next regular scheduled meeting, this would be your opportunity to make your case. Seeing none, we'll move on to, we have no public hearings tonight, so we'll go to our scheduled or timed items on our community development. We'll be looking at development permit number DP 604 for 38054 and 38060 Second Avenue. And I will turn it over to staff to introduce themselves and run us through the presentation.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Philip Gibbons with Community Development. And I'll be presenting on consideration of development permit DP 604 for 38054 and 38060 Second Avenue. So the subject site consists of 2 separate parcels and is located, as I mentioned, 38054 and 38060 Second Avenue, which is mid-block on the east side between Victoria Street to the south and Winnipeg to the north. And the site includes rear and side lane access. Surrounding land uses are a mix of commercial and residential use, and the land use designation is downtown commercial centre. And both parcels are zoned C4 downtown commercial, along with all the surrounding parcels. Applicable development permit areas are DPA 2, 3, 5, and 11. And this development permit covers development permit areas 3 and 5 related to form and character guidelines. And a flood covenant is required under development permit area 2 and a wildfire hazard covenant to address wildfire risk under DPA 11. So the proposed development includes a 6-story mixed-use building with 2 levels of commercial and parking, and then above 4 residential levels, which include 31 units. So it would be commercial CRUs at the ground floor and office on the second. And the development also includes a plaza space on the northwest corner and amenity areas internally on levels 3. And the rooftop includes a covered outdoor amenity space. The form and character of the development is reviewed against development permit areas 3 and 5, which are universal guidelines and commercial centre. And staff's review was included as appendix to the council report, and staff consider that the proposal to be supportable as the guidelines are largely met. There are 2 zoning bylaw variances requested as part of this development permit. Firstly, a building height variance from 20 metres to 23.2 metres to facilitate an unenclosed covered amenity area, and to also provide additional ceiling height for the second floor office. There's no floor area proposed as part of the rooftop amenity. However, the proposed weather protection is not exempt from the building height calculation, and staff are supportive of this variance request to provide a more usable amenity space in a variety of conditions. And the additional ceiling height on the second level will improve the quality of the proposed office space. This is based on feedback staff have received in relation to other office space in previous developments. The second variance is a increase of allowable projection into the setback for the roof or eaves from 0.91 meters to 1.48 meters. And this is required to facilitate the architectural feature along the northern boundary of the roof. And as the northern boundary fronts the lane, there are no anticipated impacts on adjacent buildings as a result. The proposal was supported by the advisory design panel with recommendations at their December 2023 meeting. Staff have worked with the applicant to address the recommendations where possible, while the majority of the recommendations were resolved, the following two remain unresolved. And the first one was a recommendation of corridor widths of 1.8 meters, where 1.5 meters is currently proposed. The Canadian standards have a requirement or recommendation that should be 1.8 meters where the path of travel is greater than 24 meters. In this case, the corridors are below this threshold and is deemed to not be required. And secondly, the ramp grade of 8% joining from the second floor car park to the second level office. And due to the site constraints, including lot size, parking requirements, vehicle access ramp grade requirements, and commercial ceiling heights, it was deemed not possible to reduce the pedestrian ramp grade. Public notification, a development sign was placed on site. The project was listed on the development showcase, and notification was sent to properties within 100 meters. 2 written submissions were received in opposition to the proposal since the council report was written and have been included on the council agenda. And concerns in these included building height, obscuring views, property value impacts, infrastructure impacts, and construction, traffic, and noise. And the recommendation is that council authorize the issuance of development permit number DP 604 as presented for the properties at 38054 and 38060 2nd Avenue. And that development permit DP 604 include variances for the following sections of the zoning bylaw. Downtown commercial maximum height from 20 meters to 23.2 meters to permit an unenclosed covered amenity area. And projections into required setbacks for from eaves and awnings may extend to a maximum of 0.91 meters to eaves may extend to a maximum of 1.48 meters along the northern lot line. And that mayor and corporate officer be authorized to execute development permit 604 subject to registration of a flood hazard covenant, registration of a covenant for protection of the development from wildfire hazard, registration of a no gas covenant requiring no natural gas be permitted for cooking and heating, including hot water, and registration of a covenant requiring that the floor level of the 6-story cannot exceed 18 meters above grade. And one final recommendation that the cash in lieu of the commercial parking stalls in the amount of $240,000 be directed to alternative forms of transportation reserve fund. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Council, questions? If we have no council, okay, that's we got everybody at once. Now we're going to go from Councillor Anderson, Hamilton, Pettingill. And then we do have a public, the proponent and members of the public will be given an opportunity to be heard in respect to this. So I have a script for that as well, but we'll do council questions first, and then we'll do that.
I wonder if staff might remind me anyway of the status of the changes that were discussed with respect to DPA 3 section 3612F concerning facade colors. I recall that there's new language discouraging uses of black and gray. I don't remember the precise phrasing, but we were concerned about the preponderance of use of these colors, especially in downtown. Would staff be able to remind me the status of that proposed change in the DPA guidelines? It does come up with respect to this building where gray is referenced as in their design rationale.
So through the mayor, those changes are going to be scheduled for a public hearing in the fall, and then assuming they move forward, adopted soon after that.
Thank you very much. My second question concerns the recommendation to allocate the $240,000 cash in lieu of commercial parking stalls, that this amount be directed to the alternate forms of transportation reserve fund. Is it not the case that another option might be to direct these monies to a parkade fund or a parking structure fund? I'm not, I can't remember how we label that, or are they one and the same?
Thank you. Through the mayor. So there is an off-street parking facility fund. That's close to the correct language. By default, if council doesn't make the motion, the funds do go there largely over time since the fund has been created. Most funds have been directed towards the active alternative forms of transportation fund. Given that this project is in the downtown and the number of active transportation projects to support people coming and going from work, staff would recommend that sending it towards the alternative forms of transportation fund would be in line with policy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hamilton.
Thanks very much. First, this question is probably more for my education than anything else. The standard of the eaves being 0.91 meters instead of 1.4 meters, I think. What's the underlying reason for having a limit on the overhang of the eaves from an urban design perspective?
Through the mayor, it's probably more specifically related to impacts on adjacent properties through building structures or buildings being too close to the property line.
Thanks. I thought that might be the answer. It's good to know. And your comment that it was close to that the north end was close to this laneway. Is the laneway part of the property, or who owns the laneway?
Through the mayor, the laneway is currently owned by the province, and we're in the process of having that dedicated as a road.
Thanks very much. One more. If you happen to know, do you know the height of the surrounding new buildings, the Amaji building or the two new buildings that are sort of a block away? What are the heights of those?
Through the mayor, the height of those existing buildings are 20 meters with additional projections for elevator, penthouses, and mechanical equipment. So they come into about 21 and a half meters.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Pettingill.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just wondering, do we have a sense of, because it seemed, from what I understand, one of the obstacles to reducing the slope of the accessibility ramp is parking spots, the number of parking spots required. Do we know if like we gave it one parking spot, we could actually have a better grade on that ramp, or is this like a 20 spot difference, or do we have a sense of what would be required there?
Through the mayor, I don't have specifically, but it's more about requiring 2 levels of parking in terms of the parking numbers rather than just 1 or 2 spaces. To add on to that, the standards for ramp angles have been reduced since some other buildings have been constructed downtown. So it's now currently more challenging to have 2 levels of parking than it has been previously.
Okay, and the 8% proposed, that is out of step then with the current, I guess it's consistent with the basic requirements, but not quite best practice then, is that?
Through the mayor, correct, it meets building code, but it is not best practice for accessibility.
Okay, and then just, I understand there are some practical limitations in terms of fire department response and height. Does that only apply to sort of covered indoor spaces, and how far sort of above that can we go when it's outdoor spaces, or is there a limit there?
Through the mayor, that's a really good question. So as soon as a space becomes enclosed, it becomes a story for the purposes of responding to a fire through NFPA. is my understanding. So there isn't necessarily a true limit to what somebody could vary for an outdoor space cover beyond what's practical. But the limitation right now is 18 meters from the top level of floor area that's enclosed. So the roof would be exempt from that.
Okay, thanks. And then the last thing, the way, the report talks about an all-electric building, which is great. Our no gas covenant language in the resolution seems to have options for decorative and other sort of gases beyond cooking and so on. Just wondering what ends up in the actual covenant, and would we need to adjust the language to ensure that this is truly an all-electric building?
Through the mayor, the language within the covenant relates to anything that could be checked at building permit. So anything that was installed later on, if there was a gas hookup to the building, we would not be able to go and retroactively remove a decorative feature. However, if it was part of the building permit, so a fireplace or a stove, they would not be allowed permitted to install a gas portion through the covenant or gas hookup.
So, okay, so they couldn't, before building permit, like before our inspectors come, there can't be decorative stuff either.
Through the mayor, I'm not sure what decorative stuff would be included beyond sort of the fireplace and the cooking materials, but to my understanding, no, unless it was outside of the scope of the building code.
Okay, and then maybe it's for a follow-up discussion, the mayor can cut me off, but I'm sort of surprised that our covenant has no effect after, like, I understand we may have limited resources to go and sort of inspect after the fact, but if we were doing some work later on and saw someone had violated their covenant, would we not have the ability to enforce our covenant?
Through the mayor, that's correct. It's an enforcement issue in that we wouldn't be able to go back and check because there would be no mechanism to, without a complaint.
Thank you. Councillor French.
Thank you, Mayor Herford. The project literature indicates there is a single spot for a loading zone. I looked hard at the plans, really hard. Couldn't find it. Where's the loading zone?
Through the mayor, that may be an error. Obviously, I don't have it in front of me. However, loading is off on street on 2nd Avenue is the preferred approach.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. So as it relates to the height piece in the so the height variance that's requested in the drawing is actually below the mechanical pieces for the elevator. Is that correct?
Correct. The elevator penthouses, for want of a better word, is they're exempt from height calculation.
Okay, but so this, and then this doesn't, there's no, the 20 meters, the inside, there's no apartment, there's no living space above the 20-meter mark. That's the top of the building. And this is really the amenity that comes up maybe 3/4 of the way up that mechanical penthouse for the elevator.
Correct. So it's just a covered structure to provide some weather protection. It has no walls or inside space associated with it.
Okay, thank you. Could you run me through the sort of that hall width piece again? You touched on it in your presentation, but where does it? It's at the 1.5 meters now, and I'm trying to paraphrase. You just tell me if I'm correct. If not, you can put the slide up and run me through it again. So make sure I understand. The regulations say it can be 1.5. It is 1.5, but the advisory design panel was trying to push it a bit wider to 1.8. Is that what happened? But it's still on side with our regulations or building code or whatever the governing principle is.
Correct. So currently at 1.5 meters, building code minimum of 1.2 meters. recommendations for accessibility where hallway lengths exceed 24 meters is 1.8 meters. I understand our hallway lengths are less than that. So 1.5 meters is appropriate for accessibility. And I believe 1.5 meters is wide enough to turn around a wheelchair and to just have them pass each other.
Okay, and then this particular piece was mentioned just because it was a suggestion from the ADP that wasn't adopted by the proponent. That's why it was mentioned?
Correct. So all other recommendations or items that were requested for checking were carried out, and these two items were outstanding from the recommendations.
Okay, thank you for that. I just wanted to make sure I had that part correct. Yes, go ahead, Councilor Pettigal.
And have we seen this before and I've forgotten, or is this sort of, it didn't require a rezoning, so we didn't see it? There's no CACs. Just wonder if you can clarify.
Through the mayor, yes, this is already zoned C4 in the downtown commercial. No rezoning required to facilitate this project.
Yep, go ahead.
And it's all market ownership. There's no rental and no below market.
Through the mayor, that's correct.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions right now. We do have we're going to give the proponent members of the public to have opportunity to be heard with respect to this consideration of this development permit. So I do have a script to run through, everybody. So please bear with me. There are two proposed variances to the zoning bylaw, which were outlined in the staff report, and were included in the presentation. Members of the public are reminded that you may only speak to the variances during the process. The variances are Section 26, downtown commercial, subsection 26.3, which speaks to maximum height. So this is proposed to be varied from 20 meters to 23.2 meters to facilitate an unenclosed covered amenity area. Also, Section 4, general regulations, subsection 4.11C, projections into required setback, to be varied from eaves and awnings may extend to a maximum of 0.91 meters to eaves may extend to a maximum of 1.48 meters along the northern lot line. We're trying to make this a safe space for everyone to voice their opinion without interference from others. Therefore, I ask that members of the public maintain order and quiet during the process. Please do not applaud or interrupt any speech or action of members of council or any other person addressing council. All speakers will be given a maximum of 3 minutes to address council. For all speakers, please start your remarks by clearly stating your name and neighborhood. First, I'd like to invite any officials from the Squamish Nation to comment on the proposed zoning. Now, seeing none, we'll go to the applicant. I'll now ask the applicant or the representative to comment, after which anyone else will be given an opportunity to speak. Seeing no one, we'll go to the public. Next, I'll call on any members of the public. Each speaker will have up to 3 minutes to address council. At first, I will call on speakers participating in person. And then details to participate by telephone or WebEx platform are displayed on the screen for those who have logged in from your computer or are watching the live stream of the meeting. Instructions will also be included on the district's website. There is a moderator who will communicate with people participating online. No one put their hand up in council chambers, so I'm looking to our staff to see if we have anyone online, and I'm getting a negative on that. So I'm going to skip a few pages here. So seeing as we have we did receive some written submissions, and those will form part of the record here. But seeing as there are no further submissions, council, we have a staff recommendation before us. Moved by Councillor French. I'll second that. Would you like to speak to it, Councillor French?
I support the motion.
Thank you. Speaking in support of the motion, with this being a development permit, with these two variances, I'm confident in staff's assessment that this meets all the requirements of the development permit. And regarding the matters that we are varying, I find them to be entirely appropriate. I think the height of the building, in my mind, doesn't really change with this open space on top. It makes it far more livable. So I think this is a totally appropriate use of rooftop space that we've seen before, and I've supported before. And the setback, I think, piece, I think the 0.91 meter setback is meant to ensure there's no interference with neighboring properties, but seeing as the area that's being varied is on the north side of the building, which is adjacent to the laneway, that's just simply not the case here. And I don't think so I think it's totally appropriate to vary that. So happy to support and thank you for your work on this to staff. And I'll run the gauntlet here from Councillor Pettingill, Hamilton, Anderson.
Yeah, so I'm a bit torn, actually. I'm not sure how I'm going to go on this one. And before I get there, and I'm not going to propose an amendment or anything at this point, but I would appreciate in the future if we can include decorative exclusions in the no gas and just make sure it's just comprehensive, like no gas means no gas, full stop. And do appreciate that, like everything is complaints-based enforcement, and we may in the future need to go and enforce. But yeah, just going forward, just to have that clarity about our expectation, I think would be appreciated. The reason why I'm struggling with this one a bit is, there's no rental, no below market. In many ways, the variances make sense, but, things like hall widths and so on for accessibility, the code sets the minimums, and I'd like to think that we are moving towards going beyond that in many places. And, between the ramp and or hallway widths, and then the fact that this is completely for market, I guess I'd feel a little bit better if there was a bit more give on some of these things, which seem like some of them small things. And maybe I'm being a bit naive, but in terms of, it is a significant height variance with a cover. And so, yeah, that's making me feel a little bit itchy here. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hamilton.
Yeah, thanks very much. I'm going to support the motion. I am torn in a little bit about the height variance. I recognize one of the folks that communicated with us invited to ask the question, why do we put in a zone with a height limit if we can apply for variances to go above it? And so I think that's a very reasonable question, but also a variance to put an amenity and, an outdoor amenity space for the users of the condo to use is also reasonably appropriate. So I think that in the end, this may be a spot where we could perhaps revisit our general guidelines in this zoning, but I realize that's a bigger question than we can get to today. I would like to get to a space where we have uses that are appropriate within our zoning and that we don't have to go through variances for small things that do make sense. But I know that that's very difficult. So yeah, short answer, I support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson.
With respect to the variances, I think one of the things that we should be aiming for in our built environment is resiliency. And part of resiliency is having people who live in the buildings that can enjoy and use them well. And I think that this variance will support that aspect of user care and resiliency. I'll also address the facade colors. To quote from the staff report, the building appearance is largely defined by vertical piers of dark corrugated metal siding. This durable material references Squamish's industrial past. That, I believe, is a design rationale which we should be discouraging. To my mind, and I'm speaking semi-seriously here, it is nearly a transgression of item number 3612D in our DPA 3 guidelines to avoid false historic or structural references. I do not think we need that type of rationale, which I don't think is supportable. However, I do appreciate the prominent use of blue accents down through the front and side of the building facades. I think that's very effective. I'll also speak to the disposition of the $240,000 cash in lieu of commercial parking stalls. It is suggested by staff that this be directed to an active transportation fund, and I support this. I do agree that there are well-identified needs for active transportation infrastructure in the downtown. However, I don't think that we can avoid at some point revisiting some strategic review of the need for off-street parking facilities, even if they might be combined use facilities or repurposable structures. We need to be prepared to sort out where to locate such facilities and how to pay for them. $240,000 is not a small amount. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Councillor Greenlaw opposes. Motion. Oh, sorry. Councillor Pettingill opposes, and Councillor Greenlaw opposes. Motion carries. Thank you. Next, thank you very much. Next, we have the consent agenda. Is there anyone that would like to pull anything from the consent agenda? Councillor Greenlaw?
Yeah, I'd like to pull item B1 and B3, please.
Okay, we'll deal with those we'll pull those and deal with those at the appropriate time in the agenda. Is there anyone else that would like to pull anything? Okay, could someone move the consent agenda? Moved by Councillor French, second by Councillor Hamilton. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. So now we're on to bylaws, first and second reading. Our staff's getting set up here. So first up, we have Waterfront Landing South, OCP and zoning amendment for consideration of first and second reading. And I'll turn it over to our staff to take it away when they're ready.
All right, so good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Carrie Hamilton, planner for the District of Squamish, and with me today as background support, I have Dave Merrow, Director of Major Works, Brett McMurtry, who should be showing up shortly for the Manager of Transportation, and Leslie Douglas, Senior Environmental Specialist. We are presenting to you today the official community plan amendment and rezoning application for Waterfront Landing South, located at 1500 Highway 99 for first and second reading. So this slide provides a snapshot of the history of this development application to date. The Waterfront Landing South amendments were first presented to Council at the Committee of a Whole meeting in July 11, 2023, and again on March 12, 2024 for initial review and consideration. In between these meetings, the development hosted a public information meeting for the Sea and Sky community and public and in October of 2023. And another one specifically for Squamish Nation in February 2024. The project also presented to Advisory Design Panel on February 15th, 2024. And should Council proceed with bylaw readings for the application today, a public hearing is tentatively scheduled for September 10th, 2024, with an adoption to be determined. A public hearing is required for this application under Section 475 of the Local Government Act for an OCP amendment bylaw, but is not required for the proposed rezoning bylaw as changes given to recent legislation and land development procedure changes. The application is proposing to amend the current CD40 and P3 zone for land approved in 2017. The revised zoning includes a reduction in the CD40 area and a redesigned South Park in the P3 zone. These notable changes are a result of reduced infill into the Memquam Blind Channel, reducing the upland area and increasing marine habitat area. New zoning is proposed for the Ecological Reserve P4 zone to protect the bluff area and environmental compensation areas, and a new Marine General M1 zone is to create a protected marine coastal area that supports public use, and a marine mixed use M2 zone, which supports marina and commercial use. The 2017 Waterfront Landing Sub-Area Plan was approved prior to the latest official community plan adoption, and it was made Schedule O to the OCP and included its own policy and development permit area guidelines. In order to accommodate the proposed Waterfront Landing South changes, a revised sub-area plan has been proposed to replace the current Schedule O. The general sub-area plan layout remains the same, with changes to the following sections: minor amendments to the introduction and vision section, updates to the land use policy section, new transportation cross sections that show existing roads and the new proposed district and strata roads, minor updates to the site servicing geotechnical sections, new environmental cross sections, which weren't previously in the last sub-area plan, updated phasing plan, and DPA 13 has been significantly revised to include the current amendments under review for DPA 3 and to remove redundant environmental guidelines that have now been addressed through DPA 1. Guidelines have also been included to address ADP's comments and Council's feedback regarding diverse historical references and activated and welcoming waterfront areas. Schedules have been updated to reflect the South proposed changes. So amendments are also proposed to the CD40 zone to address the expansion of the apartment use in the South site and the removal of environmental and marine uses from the zone, which are now addressed in the P4, M1, and M2 zone. Changes include the removal of live work, duplex, and off-street parking and loading uses, townhouse uses added to all lots to encourage ground floor access and site activation, and a new conditions of use section which secures OCP policies around 3 bedrooms, affordable units, and adaptable units. Height has also been adjusted to clarify grade and define the tall buildings in alignment with the fire department's needs. Density has been reduced from an overall 3 FAR to specify specific densities and lot coverages for each lot. Setbacks for the north site remain the same, while the south site setbacks are now listed in a comprehensive site plan, which is attached to the bylaw. Marine use and natural areas sections have been completely just removed from the CD40 zone, as they are now addressed in the M1 and M2 zones. And open space was previously listed under a condition of use, and it has now been included as its own separate section with regulation that includes both private and common area open space. So parking for the north site has not changed, and a new parking table for the south site is included in this zone, and it is in compliance with the parking table that was presented to the committee in March 2024. Noting there is an additional commercial space regulation in here now. Regulation includes secured public parking, both off-street and on-street, for a total of 149 public stalls, and shared vehicle parking provisions remain in the zone, but do not apply to the south site. Lastly, new schedules and plans have been attached to the CD40 zone. So the application is proposing a CAC proposal in alignment with the district's CAC policy targets and matches the previous proposal that was presented to the committee in March. Clarification has been provided within this table and report regarding affordable unit area, childcare outdoor space, and around the public art contribution, which was requested by council at the last meeting. In total, the proposal includes 25 affordable units for the south phase and 301 market rental units and over 13,000 square feet of indoor and outdoor dedicated childcare space, which meets the CAC policy targets and is exceeding the expected childcare demand for the community. The Waterfront Landing South zoning package has remained relatively consistent with the March 2024 submission, with minor amendments to address staff comments and committee of the whole recommendations. The following two changes are more significant and have been noted in the report and included in the revised rezoning package. The first one being the South Park commercial area, which has now increased in size and moved location to the northeast corner of Building C, as you can see in this image. The revised location increases visibility of the commercial space, animates both the waterfront walkway and the main green link pathway. It provides an opportunity for wind-protected patio space, and the revised design also includes a water sports storage space adjacent to the proposed non-motorized waterfront access. The development is now proposing a total of 2,527 meters squared of secured commercial space in the south half, which is an increase of 427 meters squared since the 2017 proposal. Secondly, the provision has been included in the CD40 zone to reduce the height of the northwest corner of Building A to 4 stories, as you can kind of see in this image here to the right. So a parking study was conducted for the current off-street and on-street parking capacity and was presented and reviewed at the March 2024 committee meeting. The study confirmed capacity concerns for the free on-street neighborhood public street parking during evening hours, as seen on the graph on the left, and includes some parking solutions for consideration. At the committee meeting, concerns were raised regarding the neighborhood parking pass model and free street parking for the residents, while several public comments have also been received from the public regarding parking concerns in relation to the current site's needs and the impact of added density. As a result, the following parking solutions are being proposed to be secured in the land development agreement. They include the installation of 2-hour signage prior to the bridge installation opening, and implementation of a paid parking model in the future at district discretion. And a long-term plan for parking in this area will be to monitor as part of the downtown parking study in future reviews and reports. The March 2024 application was reviewed by the Advisory Design Panel Committee, and the committee expressed general support for the project with following considerations on securing areas for site permeability for mature tree growth, consider dedicated accessible housing units, off-leash dog park, solar considerations, and keeping a sense of place while supporting variation in building design. ADP's comments have been incorporated into the revised DPA 13 guidelines and revised rezoning package. So there are a number of technical reports for this project that have been under review throughout this application and are now at the substantial completion stage. A list of them can be found in the report and on the slide. Attached to the report are both the 2023 and updated 2024 traffic impact assessment reports and an updated parking study report to reflect the parking solutions recently proposed. Environment reports have been substantially approved for the project at this stage, and DPA 1 and DPA 13 will be required at development permit stage for this project to review environmental conditions further. The rezoning and OCP amendment requires Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure, MOTI for short, approval, which discussions have progressed but is still under review. Staff are recommending we receive initial support from MOTI prior to proceeding with public hearing, with formal approval required prior to adoption. The OCP amendment and rezoning is supported within our OCP policy through several policy objectives. In summary, the main ones being support for infill development in this particular area, and preservation and restoration of environmental habitat, clustering housing density to increase open space and park land, adding more affordable housing, encouraging activated and vibrant public space, and the creation of more commercial space. The project is meeting 2 strategic plan areas, connected and livable community, by increasing more affordable housing, park area, and commitment to public art for the entire waterfront landing site, and prepare for the future by increased waterfront commercial to help create a net increase of employment lands and space, both on land and marine. So to inform the community per policy, the application was posted to the district development showcase and a development sign was posted on the site. As previously mentioned, a public information meeting was hosted by the developer for the public in October 2023 and for the Squamish Nation in February 2024. In total, we've received about 40 plus comments have been received for the project and can be found in attachment 8. Staff are recommending the following motions be approved for the OCP amendment bylaw, which is for Schedule O Waterfront Landing Sub-Area Plan, and that it be given first and second reading and a public hearing be scheduled. Staff are also recommending that zoning bylaw amendments for Waterfront Landing South be given first and second reading. Alternatively, council could give both OCP and zoning only first reading. That concludes my presentation for the evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Council, questions? Councillor Anderson.
Ms. Hamilton, I wonder if I could trouble you to pull up any slide showing the waterfront and the marina. My question will be concerning and if we may need to come back to give Ms. Hamilton an opportunity for that, concerning the Mamcombe waterfront guidelines in the draft sub-area plan on marine uses. I have a specific question there, and it might be best if we had the illustration. My question, just while we're looking, any would do. Even that last one there. Yes, I think so. We can see the position of the, am I on? Yes. Of the pedestrian bridge and the amenity building, and shaded in brown there is the marina. Now, my question is pertaining to an item here in the DPA area number 13 for waterfront landing under environment best management practices is under marine uses number 13. And I'll read it out. Permitted marine-oriented uses in adjacent water lots shall be located outside and with adequate buffer. That's my question around that, is adequate buffer to the navigation channel. Now, to my knowledge, the navigation channel is right at the edge of that marina. My question is this a consideration? Should there be a buffer between the delineation of the navigation channel and the outer extent of the marina structures? And the reason for I ask that is that the uses of the waterfront on the other side are still evolving. And the navigation channel there was put in place when that was a barge loadout. And the navigation channel takes a particular bend, which is not really very normal. Normally, a navigation channel is in the middle of the channel. So already there's constraints. Should there be a buffer? Is the intent of this number 13 under marine uses to encourage or maintain a buffer? Is there a buffer? Should there be one between the marina structure and the navigation channel delineation?
So through the mayor, through referrals out with this project, we have received some feedback regarding this buffer comment, which is why it was included in a guideline. It is a guideline which allows us some flexibility at the development permit stage once we have detailed review to consider what that buffer should look like and to consider the specific orientation or location of that particular component. So to address Councillor Anderson's comment, there is a desire that there probably should be some sort of buffer and that should be considered at development permit review, but we don't have an exact buffer amount or exact location of where the buffer should be.
Thank you. That is helpful. My concern is that the channel will be busy and busier, especially with paddling traffic, but perhaps other types of vessels too, and in precisely that location. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions, Council? Go ahead, Councillor Pettingill.
Yeah, Just for clarity, the new M1 and M2 zones, and maybe I missed it when you said it, that's from the marine rezoning work we did. That's not new here. Is that correct?
Through the mayor, that is correct.
Okay. Now, just going through this, it seemed to reflect most of what I recalled we talked about. But one thing that seemed to be missing, and we do seem to have a version of it in the Loggers East neighborhood plan, is explicit reference to the movement away from fossil fuels and to sort of low GHG buildings and so on. And for me, I see the OCP in particular. This is where I'm mostly focused on, is the OCP document. It is obviously about a sub area, but it also, I think, speaks to our broader ambitions and set sort of an expectation, I think, in my mind, of development in general, even if it's focused on one piece. So I'm just wondering if staff can speak to why there isn't more explicit reference to, avoiding gas infrastructure in rights of ways, in buildings, and so on and so forth.
Through the mayor, that was not included in this policy document at this time because the no gas in buildings is regulated through the energy step code through the building bylaw. Certainly there's room for that within the greater OCP policy context, but that's the reason why it was not included at this time.
If I wanted to see some explicit reference, like I understand there are some provincial regulations and so on, I guess, again, it's wanting to send a message or reinforce the communication to the developer community of our aspirations and goals, and not rely on a particular provincial legislation to achieve something. So if I wanted to include a bit of language at that, is there a way I could adapt the resolution or something so that, just a couple lines to that effect could come back when we see this for the public hearing? Or would this need to go back, for another reading?
Through the mayor, so certainly you could propose a motion to just address that concern. There is a section in the sub-area plan for site servicing. It's section 421, and we could potentially include some language in there to address those concerns. Staff did hear those concerns in advance of this meeting and have prepared a draft motion for consideration around that.
Okay, and when would be the appropriate time to hear that language, now or later when we're...
I think we're on the topic. Why don't we have the draft now, just so we can start wrapping our minds around that as we explore this further? No, we haven't moved a motion, but there was some draft language that would address Councillor Pettingill's concern. So I wouldn't mind hearing what that is, so we can think about that as we go through the rest of before we get there, to give us a bit of time to turn over.
Certainly. So the draft motion is that section 4.21, servicing policies of the waterfront landing sub-area plan, be amended to remove references to natural gas infrastructure and includes policy language that discourages the use of natural gas in new buildings.
Okay. So that, and to be clear for everybody, that hasn't been moved, but this is proposed language that staff prepared for us to address this concern. So I'm assuming there's questions. You're good for now, Councillor Pettingill? Yeah. I'm seeing no one jumping. I'm going to take the opportunity to ask a question. The traffic impact and the assessment and sort of the recommendations around the Laurelwood Pemberton Bridge, could you run us through what the timing of that looks like and what those recommendations were? They weren't highlighted in the presentation, but I know that there's interest in the community.
Certainly, there's a little bit of a blurb in attachment 1 just to your report, but I'll have our specialist come over here and explain that.
Yeah, thanks, Carrie. Brent McMurtry, I'm the manager of transportation. Through the mayor, so the Laurelwood Bridge is currently envisioned to be delivered by 2030. The traffic impact assessment, so you'll see that in the attachments, there's a traffic impact assessment from 2023, and then an updated traffic impact assessment that was recently completed that is only looking to the 2030 horizon. And that's in response to a previous I guess, concern identified by the Ministry of Transportation with the changes proposed in this rezoning. And so through some ongoing discussions with the Ministry of Transportation, they were interested in seeing an updated look at the 2030 horizon to understand what the built out scenario would look like with and without the bridge in place, to understand the impacts on the Ministry of Highway or Ministry of Transportation's highway.
Okay. And then so is there a risk at this point that if Modi needs to sign off this, that they're going to want to see that bridge happen sooner? Or where does that, I get that's sort of where we are procedurally, but what is there risk there, or what were the findings?
Yeah, so through the mayor, the ministry is still reviewing this updated traffic impact assessment, but the ministry also identified since the 2023 impact assessment was reviewed, the housing mandate that's been brought forward by the province and identified has created a housing task force at the Ministry of Transportation. And so the new housing mandate that is a priority for the province was going to be considered through the lens of the review of this updated traffic impact assessment. And so I think that the risk is hard for me to know what the risk is, but I'd say that the tone of the meeting was pretty positive as far as being supportive of this rezoning.
Okay, thank you. Council, go ahead, Councillor Hamilton.
So do I understand correctly? So Modi's doing a review. They're going to bring it back. Do we have any idea on what the timing of that is? Will it potentially fit in before this comes before us for final?
Through the mayor. So yeah, Carrie spoke to this, that they're aware of our timing for public hearing and third reading, and our expectation is that we would have at least an initial response from Modi prior to advancing to public hearing, and so they're working to meet that timeline.
Okay, Councillor Greenlaw.
Yeah, I just had some questions around the parking piece. So just for clarification, the 2-hour parking idea is meant to deter people from parking in this area and then using the pedestrian bridge downtown. Is that kind of the idea, or is it just meant to be to kind of reduce parking?
Through the mayor. So the developer has completed a parking study that looked at the utilization of on-street parking as well as visible off-street parking within the existing development. And through that study, it was identified that there is a capacity concern with on-street parking, yet there's additional supply still observed on the visible off-street parking that is in the existing area. And so something that we heard when we Carrie brought this to committee, was a concern with having available on-street parking, and especially with the pedestrian bridge opening up and this serving sort of as an extension to our downtown. We, in discussions with the developer and his consultants, have come up with a proposal to introduce regulated parking that would allow residents to park overnight on street on the district's right of way, but during daytime hours that there would be time regulated parking that would ensure that it's available for people who want to access the public amenities that are being provided through this development and be able to access the waterfront bridge and other destinations as they come online through the development.
Okay, and has there been any consideration given to making it either parking permits for residents or resident only parking areas to ensure that residents have places for their vehicles during the day? Like, I get that some of them have spots in their driveways that aren't being used, but there might not be their car on the road, you know?
Yeah, so the previous parking study had included a recommendation or a suggestion, consideration by the developer's consultant to consider a resident parking permit. We currently don't have a resident parking permit program in place in the district, and so staff's consideration is that it feels like it might be premature to introduce a resident exempt program at this point when really the only people that are in that area are residents. So there's an existing problem with all the residents. And if we provide resident exempt parking passes, it doesn't really solve the problem. I think that through future sort of as we consider the site and how parking is continuing to work in the future, there may be considerations of expanding a resident exempt program that is being considered for the downtown. But at this point, we don't have a program in place to implement or suggest as an implementation step at this time.
Sure, but I guess even if we didn't do the resident permits, there's still areas in town that have like resident only parking, like the signs say resident only.
That is only on like we don't have any resident only parking spaces that are operated by the district. So any resident only parking would be either a strata road or signage that's not being enforced by any of our bylaws.
Interesting. You're talking about my street. And then with we've received several emails today, basically, of people being very concerned about this piece in particular. And the word nightmare has come up in virtually every email about like to express the difficulty that people are currently having. And even your chart showed an over 100% capacity of parking there. So I'm just kind of wondering how we're going to alleviate that pressure. And I'm not sure that a 2-hour time zone, like a 2-hour time limit, is going to help actual residents there, given how busy it is during the day. But when the other phases start opening up, and I'm sorry, I may have missed this, will there be more public parking introduced? Like, will it be alleviating some of the parking constraints that are currently there as the development expands, or do you suppose that's going to exacerbate the situation?
I think there's a few, or there are some additional on-street public parking spaces that are being provided in future phases of the development. I think the expectation with on-street public parking as the area continues to get built out is that they're public, that it's a public good that should be used by community members at a whole, and not sort of reserve space for people who live in that neighborhood. And I know that is a bit of maybe a change of mindset from what has traditionally happened in many of our neighborhoods. But I think with the proximity to downtown, and especially as the pedestrian and cyclist bridge becomes a key connection to bring people to and from our downtown, I think that it's important to think about the future as well as trying to find solutions for current residents. So yeah, go ahead, Carrie.
Yeah, if I may, through the mayor, just to add and clarify, there's currently 80 on-street parking stalls on Coho Way and Channel Road, and there are another 51 stalls proposed in the south face. There's also in phase 3B and C, which is currently under construction, there's also 72 parking stalls, surface parking stalls that will be built there. They'll have their own signage and monitoring as well, but it will be there will be more stalls coming to the area.
Okay, I just had one
Go ahead.
easy one. And just for timelines, we're talking about introducing this 2-hour limit by 2025, and the bridge is being expected to be completed by 2030. Yes?
So two different bridges. The pedestrian cyclist bridge is expected to be completed in 2025 and winter 2024, so 2024, 2025. And the idea with the introduction of the paid parking would be to align with when the bridge is opening.
Okay, good. I thought you were saying the pedestrian bridge would be 2030, and I was like, that seems like very far away. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Hamilton.
Thanks very much. Does the additional density trigger additional DCC charges? And does council have any discretion on where DCC charges are directed?
Yeah, so through the mayor, in attachment 1, you can actually find in the technical project information, I provided the DCC amount that would be added related to specifically the transportation section of the DCC fees with this proposed increase in density. Give me 1 second. The total contribution is the north development had 1,600,000 and 1.6 million, sorry, and the south contribution is estimated as 3.2 million. So a total of 4.8 million towards the transportation DCC revenue with this whole project.
And can you give me an idea of what is incorporated in the transportation DCC? I could take a narrow vision and say, well, that's 4.8 million towards the Laurelwood Bridge, but I'm guessing that's transportation is a much bigger thing than that one specific piece.
If I may, Dave Merrow, Director of Major Projects, through the mayor. So the DCC program essentially works. DCCs are contributed. They go into reserve funds for roads, water, drainage, etc. Staff, along with assistance from consultants, identify a wide range of projects that are eligible for DCC expenses. And then the way those projects get delivered is through our regular budgeting process. So that would be the tool for council to have input on which DCC projects go forward.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? Councillor Pettingill?
I was going to move. Is that we're ready?
No, I think so. Go
So
ahead.
I'm going to try moving the staff recommendations, all four on the OCP, with the addition of the staff proposal for the additional language around gas when this comes back to us.
Okay. Is there a seconder for the motion? Yep. And does anyone need the piece that wasn't included in our agenda read back again? Everyone understands what that is? Okay. Would you like to speak to it, Councillor Pettingill?
Yeah, thanks. I think, we have given this a lot of attention. I did have, which I've largely spoken to, that reservation. I think for, again, clarity to about our aspirations and the way we are moving well in the whole, I think it's important to explicitly call that piece out, even if provincial regulations at the moment are already sort of meaning that's going to happen. I think it's a useful and important addition. I do want to touch on the parking piece, and it's interesting. We keep on having this discussion where people sort of say things like, well, it's hard for commuters if you want to do this. It's hard for me to have 10 roommates each with a car all wanting to go in the backcountry. And we sort of deal with that and have this sort of discussion every time we have one of these rezonings or OCPs, and maybe we need another sort of discussion outside of this. But to my mind, I think, yes, it does make it more challenging for those use cases, because we have sort of identified that Squamish and many other communities have for a long time prioritized those uses, and we are trying to shift away from that, and that's uncomfortable. But for the folks who are trying to do more with fewer cars, have had fewer options, or they've had to pay for the parking and all the options when they don't want or need it. And as we try to move to this, I think it makes sense to start facilitating and building more where that is not the expectation. A developer and a buyer can always choose to have more parking and pay for it. I think it's better that we don't require it. And we've really designed this to be a walking focused, local focused, not a commuter area. And commuters may choose to live there and so on, but that's not what we're trying to build this around. And so I think, I understand the frustration and the tensions there, and they're legitimate, but I think we are trying to go in a particular direction. And I think this aligns with that. And so I think this is supportable. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Would you like to speak to it, Councillor Hamilton?
Yeah, thanks very much. So first, I'd like to speak to the invitingly welcome public space along the waterfront. I think the addition of that commercial space is going to give a meaningful impact on getting the public and making them feel as if it's public space, not somebody's front yard or somebody's backyard. So thanks to the proponent, for staff for working with the proponent to make that change. On the topic of parking and the Laurelwood Bridge, parking, we are going through a transition in Squamish. There's no such thing as free parking. Somebody needs to pay for it. If you're parking on the street, the municipality is paying for it, and it's being paid through your property taxes. If you're parking in your driveway, then you've paid for it. And I think it's really important that we recognize that on-street parking is not free. For everybody who uses on-street parking, it's not free. And I think it's on us as a council to have the courage to start moving in the direction of having our residents explicitly recognize that the streets are not free parking, that we should be moving to paid parking models. And I think this is going to be this is going to change our mindset and our residents' mindset about an expectation of having a place to park their car without paying for it. On the Laurelwood Bridge, I think that's a key piece of infrastructure for so many reasons. And in the long run, this isn't for this development because we're well into this right now. But I think I'm hoping that we can find clearer ways to tie infrastructure timelines to development timelines. Whether the developer is paying for it themselves or there's some other way to pay for it, I hope we can find ways to say that this development can't happen until this infrastructure is in place, independent of who pays for it. But that's not something I'm willing to put down on this development or for this slight increase in density on this development right now, because I think that's a larger burden than can be reasonably borne by this increased density. So with that, I will support this motion. Thanks.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Anderson.
Thank you. I'll also be speaking in support of the motion. I'm going to start out with a quibble, though. In the report, the sub-area plan draft here, there's reference under site remediation. Since 2016, significant remediation of waterfront landing has been undertaken. In fact, it's since 2008. And during 2008, 2009, a gigantic remediation project took place, which was well publicized around the province because it was very unique. 130,000 cubic meters of material, scrap metal, topsoil and wood chips dug out of the ground, and it was so impressive. There was delegations from Victoria Ministry of Environment to come and have a look. So that was an important episode in the history of that site and something that Squamish can be proud of because it was the first time it was ever attempted. Regarding parking, I appreciate staff's cautious and, as I interpret it, adaptive management approach that's being proposed. And I think it appears to be well considered. We're going to see as we go, and we do need to realize that there's a lot that we don't know yet, and I think that the cautious approach should be appreciated. There is a reference in the Section D Mamcombe Waterfront Guidelines to the supporting the ecological functions of the Mamcombe Line Channel. And here I have a serious quibble. We need to have a strategy for a restoration of the channel, and it's not being addressed or even described here. In 1986, all of the wood material at the bottom of the channel, right in front of the old sawmill, was dug up, dredged up, and dumped in the upper blind channel. And we have a real problem with organics-laden dredge spoil in the upper channel. It's still there, and you can see it every time we put a rock in the water, like we did at the edge of Laurelwood. It turns brown right away. It tells you the color of the circumstances of the water there. So the ecological functions, we've got to open up our eyes to what it's about here, and it's freshwater flow and the quality of the water and the organics-laden dredge spoil that continues to be an issue. And it's connected to the history of this site. That's where it came from. Moving to the marine transportation section, and it's under Section 4, Neighborhood Infrastructure. Marine transportation might in future involve a fast ferry service to Vancouver, right across on the pedestrian bridge. Passenger ferry service took place from that site for 20 years up to 2002. And we need to be mindful of this because it may come back, and it may come back as a commuter service as well. But during the time that that passenger ferry operated, there were a couple of hundred tourists a day for 6 months of the year. And these kinds of things we need to consider for our planning of this precinct. It will present opportunities and also demands for the amenities, facilities, and opportunities for businesses right in this precinct, and also for residents of Sea and Sky who may be commuters. So that's right next door, and it should be part of our thinking and planning and consideration for the vicinity of that pedestrian bridge. Finally, I wish to express real appreciation for the development proponent for the welcoming consideration being given to the industrial and agricultural heritage of this site, which is quite significant. And it's an important, or will be an important, opportunity for storytelling and for celebrating or dealing with authenticity, if you like. And this will be appreciated not only by the local residents with ties to those functions, including the Sikh community, but by visitors as well. Well done to the proponent for incorporating this into the new plans. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on this? Speaking in support of the motion, I think there's a lot to like here. I think the with the new pedestrian bridge will be coming online in Q1 maybe next year. I was going to put a marker out there somewhere. This area really serves as an extension of our downtown, and will immediately. It's not contingent on the Laurelwood Bridge connection to be considered part of downtown. So the folks currently living there and the future residents of this of the south parcel, which we're discussing here today, will have direct access to our downtown. I think, and I think the recommendation of how to address the parking concerns for on-street parking are totally appropriate, and I was happy to see that included as regulations change and downtown or changes are contemplated to how the downtown is managed. There will undoubtedly be a spillover effect because of the proximity of those on-street spots. I do think that during construction is often the most awkward phase of any neighborhood, or to be a neighbor of any facility. So given that this proponent was also the proponent that provided the housing for the folks that are there already, I hope that every effort can be made to make the in-between time between now and full build out as smooth as possible for the residents there, whether that's the maximum amount of on-street parking available or any other piece, because I do think that's really important, however, incredibly challenging to regulate, but with some proper planning from the proponents, I think that there's some pieces here that could improve quickly as things advance. I hope we have I was really happy to see the public art piece here, and I hope there's a competitive streak with this proponent as to the standard that's been set down at the oceanfront and the new park there. So I'm really curious to see what comes of that, as there's quite a sizable contribution towards the public art piece, which I was really happy to see. Anyways, I'll leave it there. I'm happy to support and look forward to next steps. So I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Councillor Greenlaw opposes. Motion carries. Thank you. So our next piece will be the zoning bylaw piece. So the zoning bylaw be given first and second reading, which I will move. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor French. Essentially a piece of the same puzzle, but if anyone would like to say anything, this would be your opportunity. Okay. With that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion carry. Oh, sorry. And any opposed? Councillor Greenlaw opposes. Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you very much. So Council, I think we've earned ourselves a quick recess here. So we'll take we'll take a 5-minute recess, and when we reconvene, we'll go into our loan authorization repeal bylaw work. Okay, so we're now in recess. Okay, welcome back. We're on item, the loan authorization repeal bylaws, which are which is the item that they are. What number? Sorry, I've lost my numbering here. 7. Is that right? 7B1 and so on. I'll turn over to staff.
Thank you, Mayor. Heather Boxer, General Manager of Financial IT and Procurement Services. Unfortunately, Ms. Souza, Director of Financial Operations, isn't available this evening, but no presentation today. I'll just introduce the topic. Prior to the May 21st, 2024 Council meeting, the Ministry of Municipal Affairs provided guidance to staff that it could move forward with the adoption of 4 loan authorization repeal bylaws. Following adoption, the bylaws were sent to the Inspector of Municipalities for approval. The inspector, contrary to the advice provided by the Ministry of Municipal Affairs staff, has indicated that the review must be after 3 readings, but before adoption. As such, 4 loan authorization repeal bylaws are being brought forward to Council for first 3 readings this evening.
Any questions, Council? Okay, so we have, we need to do these individually. So I will run through here. So the first item, District of Squamish Water Meter Capital Works Loan Authorization. Someone moved by Councillor Hamilton, second by Councillor French. Any comments? All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. So next is the landfill gas capture and flare capital works loan authorization bylaw. Moved by Councillor French, second by Councillor Anderson. All in favor? Motion carries. So the next one, and these are all repeal bylaws, just to be clear to anyone watching. Next will be the Squamish Fire Fleet Replacement Pumper Truck Loan Authorization Bylaw. Moved by Councillor Hamilton, second by Councillor French. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. Next is the Pioneer Way Extension R4 Capital Works Loan Authorization Bylaw. Moved by Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor French. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. And then the next one is, sorry, that got us through that. So now we're on to, so that gets us through that piece of work. Next, we're on to adoptions. So first up, we have the District of Squamish Advisory Design Panel Amendment Bylaw, the Squamish Housing Actions. I will move adoption of that, seconded by Councillor French. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. Next, we have District of Squamish Land Development Procedures Bylaw. This amendment bylaw regarding public hearing requirement clarification. Councillor Hamilton moves, Councillor French seconds. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Next, we have District of Squamish Zoning Bylaw, Amendment Bylaw. This has to do with landscape, soil waste, and accessibility update. Moved by Councillor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Pettingill. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have District of Squamish Zoning Bylaw, Amendment Bylaw. This is R1 Administrative Amendments. I will move that. If there's a seconder, seconded by Councillor French. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. So next, do we have alternative approval process 2024 loan authorization bylaws? I will turn it over to staff.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Melissa Bombluto. I'm the Manager of Legislative Services at the district here, and I'm with Carrie Wells today, Director of Corporate Administration. And today we are presenting the alternative approval process for the 2024 loan authorization bylaws for council consideration. The purpose of today's presentation is to obtain council endorsement to proceed with 6 alternative approval process opportunities for the loan authorization bylaws listed on the slides. All 6 long-term borrowing bylaws received first 3 readings at the regular business meeting on May 21st. Third reading was later rescinded and reconsidered on June 18th. Following the June 18th meeting, the bylaws were sent to the Inspector of Municipalities. Staff anticipate receiving inspector approval before the end of July. In order for the bylaws to be adopted, elector approval must be received, and this requirement is pursuant to Section 180 of the Community Charter, and requires municipalities to seek approval either through assent voting or the alternative approval process. Assent voting is also known as a referendum, and this requires the majority of electors to vote in favor of the borrowing prior to the bylaws being considered for adoption. The alternative approval process requires electors to submit a response form directly to the district if they are opposed to the borrowing. If less than 10% of the total number of determined electors submit response forms by the established deadlines, the bylaws may be considered for adoption. Staff recommend proceeding with the alternative approval process rather than assent voting to obtain council approval, or elector approval, sorry. To initiate an alternative approval process, council must pass a resolution establishing the following parameters. The first is the deadline for the response forms to be submitted. This date must be a minimum of 30 days following the placement of the legislated advertisements. Staff propose October 7th as the deadline. Approve the elector response form, that's the second parameter, and a draft form was provided in the agenda package for each bylaw. The fair determination of total number of electors is the final parameter, and this number was determined to be 20,369 electors. This is based on an extract of the provincial voters list from June 2024 and from the 2024 Stats Canada population estimate. If council approval is received, the next step will be to place 2 ads in the newspaper, which is the legislated requirement, and that would be on August 29th and September 5th. Staff will also advertise in the e-news and on the website. Elector response forms will be available at Municipal Hall and on the district website starting on August 29th. Elector response forms must be submitted to the corporate officer prior to the deadline that's established by council. Once the deadline has passed, the corporate officer will determine and certify the total number of responses received. If the number is below 10% of the 20,369 elector estimate, the bylaw may proceed to adoption. If the number of responses received is greater than 2,039, that's the 10% threshold, the bylaw most likely would need to proceed to assent voting before it may be considered for adoption. That concludes my presentation. The next 2 slides are the staff recommendation. So that council initiate the alternative approval process opportunities in accordance with Section 86 of the Community Charter for the following loan authorization bylaws, which received 3rd reading at the June 18th, 2024 regular business meeting. And the 6 bylaws are listed, and then the parameters that council approve the following parameters for each alternative approval process opportunity. Each of the alternative approval process opportunities will be open to all eligible electors and non-resident property electors of the District of Squamish. The deadline for receiving completed elector response forms would be 4:30 on October 7th, 2024. And then it addresses the elector response forms and the eligible number of electors. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, any questions? Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Pettingill.
Can we plan, or are we planning sort of council engagement with the public, like farmers markets type things like we've done recently for other purposes leading up to this?
Through the mayor, Christina Moore, Director of Communications. For the alternative approval process bylaws, in the past, we have taken a number of measures online and through the newspaper to ensure that the community have access to the information about the projects. Certainly looking back to one of the larger ones with the public works facility, we did take extra measures and ran public engagement pop-ups at the farmers market. At this point in time, there aren't any specific in-person engagements planned for this particular AAP. There will be other examples or public engagements or in-person engagement opportunities in the lead up to that. For example, the mayor's drop-in could be one that we could encourage folks to come out if they have any specific questions. But at this point, there's no specific in-person engagements planned for these particular bylaws.
I guess just a comment and, maybe still stinging from, I think, some, what I would characterize as misuse of the Public Works AAP process last term, that still sticks in my mind. And I felt that when we redid that, the public engagement we did around that, even for the people that weren't thinking about the AAP, they found incredibly valuable. And the engagement we've done recently over the summer, I think people really appreciate that. So to my mind, it's something I would definitely support if there's if my colleagues were interested in not wanting to put a lot of burden on staff, but just even organizing some of us showing up at the farmers market or something feels like it might be worthwhile and an extra protective. And even if it's a little bit unnecessary, people really appreciate that interaction, I think. So I don't know, throw that out to my colleagues, but I feel like that might be worthwhile in this case.
Thank you for that. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. Speaking a little bit to the outreach side of things, are each of these projects described in detail on the district website so that people wanting more information about what is the Honiak Park Sea Dike, what is the Whittaker Slough Pump Station, so that they can get further information and details easily on these loan authorizations?
Through the mayor. The two that you mentioned, Councillor Hamilton, are on the website currently and have been for quite a while. Those projects have been well publicized through the community over a number of years. The other four, we are still working on gathering content from the project managers. Each of them will be featured on the website. To ensure that when the AAP does launch, that there is sufficient information there so that people can, the residents can understand what the project is all about. So it is a work in progress, but will be ready to go once the AAP launches.
Okay. Council, any other questions? We do have the staff recommendations here, which can be moved together. I'm going to look to our corporate officer. Yep, they can be moved as one. Is that what you're doing? Okay, I will second that. Would you like to speak to it? You don't have to. That's no is a fair action. Yeah, thank you. Happy to support this, moving this forward, and hearing from the community on these pieces through this process. So thank you for all the work to get us here. I know these things don't just happen. So thank you. And with that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Okay, next up under community development, we have consideration of development permit 616 for 37707 2nd Avenue. And I will turn over to staff to introduce themselves and the topic.
Thank you, Mayor Herford. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Brian Daly, planner with Community Development. I'm here tonight to present a development permit application at 37707 2nd Avenue. At the October 17th, 2023 regular council meeting, zoning bylaw amendment number 2922-2022 was adopted. This bylaw rezoned the subject property from light industrial I-1 to comprehensive development zone number 104 to facilitate the development of a 3-story commercial and employment building. The subject property is a vacant lot on the southern end of 2nd Avenue in the downtown Squamish South neighborhood. This DEP application seeks to establish the form and character of a 3-story commercial and employment building. The development includes 928 square meters of employment space over 3 floors, with 321 square meters of outdoor amenity space on the rooftop patio. The proposal is considered a priority development application given 100% of the space is proposed as employment space. The proposal meets the CD 104 zoning and the building height is 15.6 meters. Parking is accessed off of the lane and meets the requirements of the zoning bylaw. 19 parking stalls are required, 11 stalls will be provided, and cash in the amount of $240,000 will be provided in lieu of the 8 remaining commercial parking spaces as permitted through the zoning bylaw. Cash in lieu will be provided prior to the building permit issuance. As per the zoning bylaw, 1 on-street loading space will be provided within 45 meters of the property. 7 Class A bicycle parking stalls are located on the 1st story, and trip facilities are provided on the 2nd story. Design and facade detailings are highlighted with colorful punched windows, facade column projections, and a practical rooftop screen and shroud, which protects neighbors from overlook and provides an opportunity for wind protection on the rooftop patio. The 2nd Avenue storefront is scaled to the neighborhood and is highlighted by architectural concrete. Each street front inset provides weather protection and access to large painted storefront windows and doors. The wall facing the rear lane and north facing the interior lot line will be surfaced to accept a local mural installation. The construction methodology of the building is a hybrid of concrete masonry unit sidewalls, mass timber floor plates with glue laminated timber columns and beams. This will expedite on-site construction and reduce site disturbance while also providing tenants with a durable and flood-resilient structure. The colorful facade palette speaks to the artistic nature of this neighborhood. DP 616 was not presented to the advisory design panel for review as it was deemed a project of small enough scale and sufficiently compliant with DPA guidelines that it did not warrant ADP review. To inform the community per policy, the project was posted to the district's development showcase and a development sign has been posted at the site. A project information meeting for DP 616 was held on April 11th, 2024 at the House Sound Brew Pub, given that more than 10 requests for a PIM were received. Approximately 12 members of the public attended. Most were neighbors of the proposed development. Concerns noted were similar to those voiced during the rezoning process and were related to the proposed parking layout, potential noise from the rooftop patio, and whether an alcoholic beverage manufacturer could open on the rooftop patio. The applicant clarified that there is a covenant on title requiring the rooftop patio to be open for all users or all use of all tenants in the building. Given that the proposal meets the DPA 3 and 7 guidelines, staff recommend approval of DP 616 and that the cash in lieu of commercial parking stalls be directed to the alternative forms of transportation reserve fund. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you very much. Council, questions? Go ahead, Councillor Pettingill.
Yeah, in the permit, it requires they get a tree permit. Is that a tree removal permit or a permit to plant trees? I'm just wondering if you can clarify.
Through the mayor, that's standard language included in the DP. So if any trees need to be removed on site, it's just highlighting that you need a tree removal permit to do that work.
Okay. And one of the reasons I'm asking about the trees is there's some back and forth correspondence, and I was trying to sort of understand the chronology. And I'm hoping to get some clarification, but it sounds like there is an older tree that some people wish to retain. Some people thought it was on district property versus developer property. Now I'm not clear exactly where that tree was, and it sounds like that there isn't a plan to keep it, but I'd like some clarity there. But the other piece that I'm trying to get at is, if I understood, the opportunity to sort of enshrine what happens to that tree would be at the rezoning, but our process is such that the project information meeting happens later after the DP when it's sort of too late to get that feedback. And so I understood, like, is there sort of, I guess, a gap in our process maybe where when people are sort of having this information meeting, giving the feedback, the decision to affect that it's already happened. And so it's a bit of a tangent, but just trying to understand the chronology of our different processes.
Through the mayor, there was 2 project information meetings held for this project, one at the rezoning, and then there was a public hearing through that process. And then there was a second public information meeting at the time of development permit. Obviously, securing items that would be kind of outside of our bylaws, or, you know, retaining trees on private property, things like that. That's something you'd want to secure through the rezoning stage. That did not happen. I believe this tree is on district property, and potentially, depending on how the streetscape design for this portion of Second Avenue plays out, it might not be possible to retain that tree. But that streetscape design has not been finalized at this time. And I'm not completely sure if that tree is located on either private property or on district road right of way, but it would be very challenging to retain the tree because this is proposing a 0 lot line setback, except on the rear of the property.
So if I can follow up, so there's a chance that this tree is on our property, but because of the 0 lot line setback, this development would require the removal of a tree on our property, possibly?
Through the mayor, not necessarily. The streetscape design for Second Avenue would likely dictate what would happen with that tree.
Thank you. Council, any further questions? Seeing none, I'll move the staff recommendation. If there's a seconder, I'll speak to it. Second by Councillor Anderson. Yeah, thank you for all the work on this. It's great to see this project move forward. I think this clearly meets all the guidelines for the DP to be issued. So I'm happy to speak in support, and look forward to seeing this new commercial spaces come online in our downtown. Any other comments on this, Councillor Anderson?
Yes, speaking in support of the recommendation, I feel that if we were to have an architectural design competition in Squamish, which maybe one day we might aspire to have, this would be a deserving candidate for 2024. I think it is a noteworthy building in its construction design and materials used, facade, color, and not least, and I'm not sure whether there's a firm plan, the octopus mural. The Pacific octopus, right in Howe Sound here, is the largest octopus in the world. And when the Upper Mamquam Channel was in better condition than it is today, we used to see them walking to school right underneath the Highway Bridge, the largest octopuses in the world. So this is a great Squamish building and a great Squamish story. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Learn something from time to time around this table. Go ahead, Councillor Greenlaw.
Yeah, I won't be supporting the motion. I would like to echo Councillor Anderson's comments. Any appreciation of cephalopods is a-okay with me. But for me, the big thing is the tandem parking. I have a hard time getting over that. And yeah, I just won't be supporting this. Thanks.
Okay, any further comments? See none, I'll call the question. All in favor and opposed? Councillor Greenlaw opposes. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Next, we have Rural Economic Diversification Implementation Program application. We have some folks from our ECDev team to present to us. We'll give them a moment to get set up here.
Thank you for waiting. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Jen Stone, Economic Development Officer with the District of Squamish, and I'm joined this evening by Halal Safas, Economic Development Specialist with the District of Squamish. And tonight we're going to present to you the proposal to apply to the province of BC's Rural Economic Diversification and Infrastructure Program, commonly known as REDIP.
Next slide, please. We would like to.
Sorry, it might be a little awkward for you guys, but we need to have the mic on for whoever's speaking. So we got to.
Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Next slide, please. Oh, do you want me to repeat? All right. Sorry. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Hilal Salash. I serve as an Economic Development Specialist for the District of Squamish. And the next slide, please. So we would like to provide some background on Squamish circular economy and how it has evolved over the years. Since adopting the first Zero Waste Action Plan in 2016, district staff has been building on local zero waste efforts by embracing circular economy principle and practices, including circular economy as a key action in the Community Climate Action Plan, and incorporating it into the Emerging Sector Roadmap and Action Plan in 2020. There were really the pivotal steps forward. And Council's endorsement on the Circular Economy Roadmap and Implementation Plan in October 2023 further solidified the district's commitment to these principles. So the roadmap identifies 3 primary areas for advancing the circular economy in Squamish. There are food systems, the built environment, and the textiles. And securing the initial REDIP grant from the province allow our economic development team to really kickstart the implementation plan in late 2023. And this initial phase is aimed at stimulating local business innovation and circular practices, fostering collaboration and optimizing resource use to enhance community-wide resilience. And next slide. The implementation plan builds upon the district goals and strategically aligns with the highlighted policies and plans you see on the slide. Implementation plan actions tailored to support the objectives of official community plan, specifically section 19, which focuses on the built environment and promotes circular economy principles through initiatives like reducing community greenhouse gases and advancing green building design. Section 21 addresses solid waste. Section 24 emphasizes local employment skills and training alongside sustainable diverse business growth. And Section 26 centers on sustainable food system, agriculture, food blends, food production, and other critical areas such as ensuring healthy food accessibility across all neighborhoods. The implementation plan also aligns with the goals outlined in the Community Climate Action Plan, such as the goal, the Big Move 1, closing the loop on waste, Big Move 4, decarbonizing existing buildings, and Big Move 6, other organizational actions which aim to align business development activities with the climate action objectives. Additionally, the plan aligns with other strategic and regional efforts such as Sea to Sky Food Recovery Strategy Action Plan, District of Squamish Social Procurement Policy, Squamish Valley Agricultural Plan, and Sea to Sky Outdoor Adventure and Recreation Enterprise Society Strategic Plan. Next slide. The implementation plan consists of 37 actions organized into 4 focus areas: the foundation setting, food systems, textiles, and the built environment. A foundation setting for circularity really involves establishing fundamental building blocks and generating sustained momentum in the local economy. This phase is planned for the short term, especially in the initial years following the council endorsements in 2023. And as part of the foundation setting tactic, the implementation plan prioritizes a district-wide approach to circular engagement, adoption, and activation. And this initiative aims to maximize the district influence and lead by example, fostering a shared sense of responsibility and community-wide participation. Next slide, please. To support these initiatives, funding is required to advance the tactics outlined in the implementation plan. Specifically, the proposed efforts under the foundation setting objectives include Objective 101, implementing programs, communication tools, and campaigns to promote circular adoption and foster behavior change among residents and businesses. Objective 1.2, building a circular, resilient, and innovative economy. As part of this objective, action item 1.2.3 of the Circular Economy Implementation Plan proposes a labor force development plan. This plan also aligns directly with the official community plan, section 24, local employment skills and training. It aims to identify and address labor needs and gaps within the community while enhancing the skills, expertise, and talent of our citizens. And, oh, sorry, I missed one, an Objective 1.4, implementing district-wide initiatives for circular engagement, adoption, and activation throughout Squamish. Thank you. So we wanted to give an overview of the current REDIP funding and its status. So the district secured its first round in 2023 for a 3-year implementation period ending in March 2025. The initial phase integrated strategies that really meet the community needs and address barriers to adopting circular practices in the local economy. The funding is structured around 5 components. The first 3 that you see, the Trailblazer Program, Innovation Challenges, and Microgrants, aimed at fostering innovation and building capacity among local businesses, mitigating financial risk associated with exploring these new circular ideas. Additionally, tools like the Asset Map and Asset Sharing tool, they are designed to promote collaboration within local organizations, facilitating resource utilization and knowledge building to sustain our local circular economy. Currently, 24 businesses are enrolled in the Trailblazer program, nearing our initial target of 25 businesses, and we anticipate completing all components of the funding by the end of this year. For about the proposed rate of funding, the primary goals really facilitate Squamish's transition to a circular economy through the key strategies, through the 2 key strategies, sorry. The first one focuses on advancing circular procurement practices. As mentioned earlier, the implementation plan prioritizes district-wide engagement and leading by example and fostering community participation. So the municipal procurements play a pivotal role in promoting a circular economy by influencing markets and establishing sustainability standards in the economy. So by prioritizing circular principles and purchasing decisions, the project aims to increase demand for sustainable products and services, and guided by the District of Squamish's social procurement policy, this project would like to educate staff on circular and social procurement practices and support local businesses in implementing these principles as well. The second component of the labor force development plan it's a comprehensive plan, will assess and address evolving skill gaps within Squamish's labor force. Through collaboration with partners, consultants will conduct research to identify training needs and opportunities for workforce development. The plan will provide actionable recommendations and identify implementation partners to support the growth of a circular skilled labor force, prioritizing economic reconciliation, diversity, equity, accessibility, and inclusion. Next, please. The graphic outlines here the district-led circular Squamish efforts from 2023 to 2027, covering a successful 5-year period under the new funding application components. If we're successful, by the end of this period, most of the objectives of the foundation setting tactics and the implementation plan will be achieved. Regarding the funding program, REDIP supports rural economic development projects focused on enhancing economic capacity, diversification, resilience, and clean economy opportunities. We will be applying to the implementation stream, which provides funding of up to $1 million. Additionally, this application aims to enhance partnership with organizations like Capilano University, Squamish Nation, and Community Features House Sound. It also includes funding allocations for district staff and an indigenous consultant to support these collaboration initiatives. Next, please. Thank you. We are seeking endorsement to apply for a project with a budget of up to $1.25 million with a maximum rate of contribution of $1 million. The district and economic development partners are required to contribute a minimum of 20% of the total project cost up to a maximum of $250,000. Of the required 20%, half must be in the form of a cash contribution from the district and economic development partners. The remaining can be in form of in-kind contribution from the district and partners again. Any additional commitments from partners could potentially reduce the district financial commitments and enhance the project plan. And through the fund, up to 25% of the total project value is available for staff wages. This will provide the economic development team with the capacity required to fulfill this project. The project budget has already been included in the 2025-2028 five-year financial plan for council's consideration, with resulting budget impacts spread across 2025, 2026, and 2027. Next slide, please. The proposed next steps involve securing council's endorsement to proceed with the funding application, and following this, economic development team will engage partners for their support and finalize the application for submission by October 30th. Upon approval, implementation will start in mid-2025, and in the event of an unsuccessful funding application, the team will explore alternative funding sources, adapt to implementation strategy, and adjust deliverables accordingly. Next slide, please. As we conclude, I kindly request your consideration and endorsing the staff to apply for the Rural Economic Diversification Infrastructure Program. Thank you for your attention and the support. Thanks.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Council, do you have any questions that remain unaddressed after that presentation? Councillor Hamilton, then Anderson.
Thanks very much. So the circular economy is certainly very, very important, very exciting, and I hope we can certainly move in that direction. I've got two questions. In the previous slide, you said that the district and partners are responsible for $250,000. Is it currently foreseen that the district would be paying $250,000, or have any of the partners come forward with some financial contributions?
Through the Mayor, thank you for the question. The amounts that we presented are the maximum amounts. They're not determined that that will be the final amount. The 20%, half of that is in-kind value and half of that is cash contribution. And so the cash contribution is $125,000, and of that, the district is, as the lead applicant, bound to contribute that, but any funding that we acquire through partners will reduce that amount that we need to provide.
And I think it was last time the Circular Economy Trailblazer program came to the council table, I asked about measurables. How will we measure whether the program is successful? What pieces of data do we have that can inform us as to whether we've been successful or not?
Through the Mayor. So to be able to measure the progress and the success of the program, we really need the baseline data first. And to be able to do that, we need to do the material flow analysis first for especially the three thematic areas that's highlighted in the implementation plan: built environment, food systems, and the textiles. And to be able to do that, we also need the funding allocated for that. But yeah, I will let Jen continue the sorry.
So the materials flow analysis is at this point likely to be undertaken by a regional partner. So we do have some hope that that will be done without the district leading that project. Each of the action items within the circular economy implementation plan will have direct objectives and metrics associated with those, but the overall metrics required to measure the impact of your circular economy is one of the big questions that we're tackling, but many others are too. So it is something that we are continuing to consider, and I thank you for raising it again and bringing it back to our attention.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks. And the answer helped me to clarify another question. So you said there were three primary areas: the built environment, the food systems, and the textiles that will be monitored and measured. Do you have any idea right now on what scale those have in terms of mass? How much is coming? How much can we potentially divert through circular economy measures in the built environment stream? How much might we be able to divert in the food systems, and how much might we be able to divert in the textile system, in the textile stream?
Through the Mayor, in advance of answering that question, I will say that we selected the three focus areas when we did this work for different reasons. Built environment and food systems were really about waste prevention. Textiles was about a community issue that we were facing, alignment with our emerging sector ecosystem work, and also the tangibility of textiles for the everyday person. The built environment circular economy is really quite esoteric to the everyday person. Food systems is also quite understandable and, a day-to-day need, but textiles was another one that sort of crossed the barriers between consumers and businesses from our perspective. And so I will just say it wasn't just the opportunity to reduce waste when we selected those thematic areas. And in saying that, the two areas that come up for most countries and regions, built environment and food systems, are two of the biggest opportunity areas with regard to the circular environment, but with regard to the circular economy. And again, locally for us, textiles is another opportunity because we don't have good local secondary markets for textiles.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I have Councillor Anderson next.
Thank you. My two questions are on the theme from the CCAP that you've cited, the big move number one, closing the loop on waste. We are still continuing to see missed opportunities in building deconstruction and material salvage. Old buildings typically have, for the trained eye, valuable lumber, valuable wood. Whether or not there needs to be addressing insulation issues and stuff like that, but nonetheless, it keeps coming up. The Embodied Emissions Guide from December 2022, a project that our district took part in producing, delivering, it is referenced in your presentation, and I'm going to quote from it. There's opportunity to create public-facing information about homes slated for demolition at the building permit application stage, which will allow house relocation and material salvaging companies to contact homeowners for potential moving or salvaging opportunities. I'm wondering if there may be, this addresses the key challenge of getting the entrepreneurs, the developer in sync, and also in sync with respect to awareness of opportunities. It might be a tool. Is it something that could be considered within the scope of the present proposed program?
Through the Mayor, there are a couple of opportunities that come to mind. One opportunity that's being discussed with a local partner is a tool such as you mentioned with regard to an exchange with regard to an online platform. The other aspect that I would highlight through the proposed funding is we are including innovation challenges with a larger funding pool for each innovation challenge. And it's opportunities like this that I would love for a business or businesses to adopt to elevate that opportunity and advance that work. I agree that the building and deconstruction sector is a big opportunity in Squamish, particularly with regard to the amount of development that we have here, that we see here. So thank you for the question.
Thank you. A follow-up question really on the same theme. We have recently undertaken a memorandum of understanding with Jacqulin University. And to quote one of the, from your presentation, identify skill training gaps and opportunities for the Squamish workforce. About 3 years ago, a former staff member with the district was in conversation with Jacqulin University about undertaking a pilot program or even a course on building deconstruction. Is this something that might be entertained in collaboration with Jacqulin University and in the context of that memorandum of understanding and the present proposal?
Through the Mayor, thank you for the question. I may get the institution incorrect here, but I believe that BCIT is already running a building deconstruction micro-credential. And that launched, I believe, must have been in September last year.
Very interesting. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other questions, I will move the staff recommendation that council authorize staff to apply for the Rural Economic Diversification and Infrastructure Program grant. Seconded by Councillor Hamilton. Thank you very much for your work on the presentation and already on advancing these goals in the community. I hope we're successful in our application and we can start to move some of these or continue to move some of these pieces forward. So thank you so much for the work. And are there any other comments here? Great. Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. When do we expect to hear from this would be the last question now that we've authorized an application?
It will be spring 2025.
Okay, so we won't hold our breath, but we'll wait, but we'll eagerly anticipate a successful application. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you for hanging out for as late in the evening as we've ended up here. Okay, so we had no late, so moving on, we have no late agenda items. We had no correspondence action requested. We did have correspondence referred from the consent agenda. Councillor Greenlaw, it was items 7B, 1 and 3. So we will start with the Skyline Drive piece.
Sure. Thanks. Through the chair, this issue touches on safety concerns that have been coming up a lot recently, in particular on Depot and Westway and, of course, Skyline. And these concerns directly are impacting the livability of our neighborhoods in terms of feeling safe, including safe routes to school options, and is also impacts the usability of our active transportation network. So on the issue of speeding, I'd like to take this opportunity to remind members of the public that it is much cheaper, faster, and better for our community for people to be respectful of existing speed limits and police themselves while driving. I know we are engaging in some speed limit surveys right now, but I still regularly witness people speeding all over town, regardless of the posted speed limit, and it makes active transportation less appealing and far more expensive. One of the reflections that I had from our trip to Japan was I was amazed by how harmoniously pedestrians, bikes, and two directions of cars would share these narrow roads. And it occurred to me how expensive our society's car-centric attitude is. This attitude that roads are for cars exclusively results in millions of tax dollars being poured into expensive infrastructure for cyclists and pedestrians when we could just re-educate our drivers and share the road. I just want to reiterate that our commitment to active transportation must not be limited to building new infrastructure for commuters, but also optimizing existing infrastructure like Skyline, like Depot, like Westway, so that pedestrians and cyclists are safe and to not optimize the existing infrastructure is to not prioritize active transportation. And if we don't facilitate the transition to cycling, walking, and transit from driving, we will end up with a community of very frustrated drivers who can never find parking. So I'd really like to continue this conversation, and I'd like to receive an update from staff on the prioritization of our active transportation projects. And this letter made mention to a report that was requested, before our time on the feasibility of making Skyline a one-direction road. And I'd like to request to see that if it does exist.
So one question there was an active transportation update. Is there anyone that could speak to when, I know these happen from time to time. Could anyone speak to the current scheduling of that while we have this? Is that in the fall that we see that generally? Sorry.
Through the mayor, if Ms. Vengi can speak to the schedule, yes, but otherwise when we pull things from the consent agenda, if we need more detail, we can bring it back to a future meeting.
Yeah, if anyone wants to take can answer that now, and if not, we can refer it to a future meeting.
Thank you. Through the chair, we are just in the process of finalising the timing of all the transportation updates and information on the items that will come before council, but it is anticipated we will start in September with all those updates.
Thank you. And I'm assuming those would be positioned there in advance of to inform our October budget deliberations. Okay. So with this piece of correspondence, we had thank you for pulling this and speaking to it, Councillor Greenlaw. So there's the one ask which is September is effectively one of the next times we're going to be in this room is the other piece about requesting an old report or something. Did you have would you like to have a motion to that effect, or what would you like to? And otherwise, we need to figure out a destination for this piece of correspondence as well.
Yeah, well, I'll make a motion to receive the correspondence. Should I should do that separately? There you go. Okay.
It's been moved in second, so we're into comments on it as well. Do you have any additional comments? I know you just spoke to it, but is there anything else you'd like to add here before I go around for other comments?
Well, I'll make a motion to request the report, but I'm assuming that's the second.
Yeah. Okay. So just on receipt of the report, I've got Councillor Pettingill and Hamilton.
Yeah, I thank my colleague for pulling this. I have been sort of wondering, this is something we, in our strategic planning, prioritized some of the speed limits and safety. I know work has been ongoing, but I think many of us are interested to sort of understand where we are. There are some, I will say, real community champions and wanting to advocate and I think support in some of the goals that I believe council shares. And so I think it would be sort of useful, not just for council, but for the community to understand where we are and what we can see. And I sort of hope, and my understanding was that we were looking for some holistic solutions. I know there are particular people on particular streets that want to see particular things done, but I think there's a lot of commonality across what people would like to see. And so I'm really eager to sort of understand where we are on that. And so I look forward to that in September. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hamilton, then Anderson.
Yeah, thanks for bringing this correspondence forward. I've engaged a few times with the engaged residents on Skyline. I'm really thankful to them for thinking about this and being concerned about their street, just like everybody's concerned about their streets. Skyline, I think, is a particularly challenging street because it's on such a it's on such a steep slope. And thinking about it, the only solution I can think of that would really solve it, because the district, we've already reduced the speed limit to 40 kilometers an hour. We've already put in, a painted bike lane, shared laneway on the way down. And I don't really see a lot more infrastructure we can put in there, short of making it one way uphill. But that's not something we can mandate. Hopefully that's something we can have considered in a larger scope. So thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson.
I'm one of probably a few councillors that have had the opportunity to visit Skyline Drive with the residents who have been in correspondence with us, and there have been a few. These are residents with some history in the neighborhood, some substantial experience, and they've done some research. While we so far in our conversation have talked about general themes and commonality and upcoming expert transportation policy review, we also have a transportation master plan review, and some of the letters elements would be addressed there, presumably. But I think I would like to encourage a visit by staff, if one has not been undertaken, with these residents on Skyline, because I do think that there are specific pieces of infrastructure that arise for me alongside these residents. One is they have some observations on speed bump design and the history of installing speed bumps on Skyline. And I think that their observations are convincing to me and deserve to be heard. I also think that speeding, that's a general theme, but I have witnessed it myself. I'm not a resident of that area, but I was certainly impressed by the issues. The parking topic has come up in their correspondence, and I think that I'm convinced with their observation that it was a mistake to remove on-street parking. They also suggest flex posts at the corner of Braemar and Skyline, and I think that should be looked at by our staff. I do suggest this. And e-bikes, a general theme. I think that there must be other communities that are experiencing e-bike policy issues, and we're just becoming aware of them, and we're not alone. But I think that our upcoming active transportation work might address where are we at with e-bikes and what they're doing on our streets and their behaviors. And I'm sure this is going on around the world, but maybe we should catch up on some policy dialogue around e-bikes. I'm not going to add anything to the motion, but I would like to encourage a staff visit with the residents in Skyline. I think that the work they've done and the observations they've made are important. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor French.
Mayor Herford, I'm speaking in favor of the motion and thankful to Councillor Greenlaw for highlighting this letter. This letter and others from residents on Skyline have presented some excellent and creative ideas to resolve the safety issues on Skyline. As we've heard, there's all kinds of issues, high speeds, steep roadway, blind driveways is a big issue in a few places. Many drivers using it as a collector road when really it was designed as a resident road back in the day. Sight lines are terrible in a few places, and there's very little room for pedestrians and cyclists. So as we grapple with all of that and we do the bigger picture work around policy on our roadways, there is definitely some things that folks can do on their own to improve the situation. Non-resident traffic really should be using Highlands Way South to get into and out of the Garibaldi Highlands, and leave Skyline as a resident-only road, basically for the use of the folks that live in between Air Drive, Fordell Crescent, and Skyline itself. That alone would reduce volumes on that road and make a difference for the folks who are struggling to get out of their driveways and have their children get to and from school safely. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, just briefly, I'm speaking in support of the motion. And to be clear, our motion is to receive this letter. I think it's important to acknowledge the concerns of the residents and the challenges that they're facing. I think I've ridden up Skyline substantially more times than I've driven up Skyline or down. And it is a challenging space. And I think that sorry, in your comments, Councillor French used the in the day, and that's exactly right. This isn't something that would happen today, and it's not to today's standards. And what do we do with that? I do think that I know that we hear from residents throughout the community. I heard Depot Road mentioned earlier in the conversation, as well as Westway, and of course on 3rd Avenue with the seniors and their concerns there. So we do have speed concerns broadly throughout the community, and we need to do our best to address them, to prioritize them and address them, which is the crux of all of this. I do appreciate Councillor Greenlaw for bringing this highlighting and giving us an opportunity to sort of highlight this particular piece of correspondence. And I do want to reiterate that there is an element of personal responsibility here. Design, street design, and traffic management, and all the rest is very, very important. But getting people to behave safely cannot be done exclusively through municipal infrastructure upgrades, nor enforcement, or a combination of those two. There is an element of personal responsibility here, and but it's a three-part equation. So often we hear about those two pieces around design and enforcement exclusively, but there is that third part, which I think can be incredibly effective. So. Yeah, and I do look forward to seeing the outcome. We haven't seen the outcome of the sort of that broader traffic safety, traffic calming, speed limit exploration work, and I think that's the next natural test point for this, as well as which ties in with that active transportation piece. So, yeah, definitely acknowledge we have some work to do broadly across the community, including this spot. I'll call the question. All in favor? Okay, motion carries. So the next one, Councillor Greenlaw as well. So this is 7B3, the dogs off leash downtown Squamish.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to make a request for the report.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Too.
Yeah.
So I guess a motion for staff to present council with the report on the feasibility of a one-way route on Skyline.
So, sorry, just there was a I want to be clear. There was a mention to a previous report, and I think that's what you're seeking, not for staff to do a new report on this. Just if we could have access to the existing report.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So, hold on one second. I'm gonna see if we can. Yeah, you want to second that? So basically, you're looking for staff to share with council. We don't necessarily need a presentation, but share with council make available to council this report, this historic report on one-way traffic on Skyline that we're assuming exists because it was the content of this letter. That's the tension point I have.
That is an assumption. So
yeah.
If it exists, if it was ever completed, I'd be curious to see it. Oh, well, this is not.
Okay, so Ms. Walls, do we turn that into I think everyone understands what we're trying to accomplish, but I'm trying to get something for.
But staff be directed to make available to council the report completed on one-way traffic on Skyline Drive.
Sounds great.
If it exists.
Well said, team. Yeah, with that caveat, obviously. Seconded by Councillor French. Thank you. I think it's fairly self-explanatory. We're curious about what that report said. So, but does anyone else have any comments beyond that?
Well, I just have a quick kind of tangential comment. I do understand that there's been a whole historical saga around speed bumps. So we were just mentioning about infrastructure and what can be done. My understanding is that for a while, there were speed bumps that were actually functional. And now the speed bumps that are there are not so deterring. They're speed humps, apparently. So anyways, that's not really pertaining to this message.
Okay. I will call the question. All in favor? Thank you. Motion carries. All right. And that looks after the correspondence referred. And now we're on to... We didn't have any minutes
Oh, I had the dog thing.
Oh, sorry, the dog thing. Right. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, and so this letter's from a while ago. I have had a bit of a back and forth with the proponent as well, but I just wanted to pull this letter because I keep hearing and witnessing a lot of irresponsible dog ownership that ranges from uncontrolled dogs off leash to unleashed dogs biting children, or negative encounters of bystanders with dog owners who are off leash. The dogs are off leash. To just a disturbing amount of feces in playgrounds, trails, and fields. And I'd like to take this opportunity to also implore dog owners to be more considerate of our other community members, I am also a dog owner. And please pick up after your pets. And from a bylaw enforcement perspective, I hope that our bylaw officers are considering, when appropriate, a pivot from an educational approach to a more enforcement-based approach for some of these issues, especially if it's in the downtown area. So I'll just make a motion to receive this letter as well.
Thank you. I'll second the motion. Any other comments on this? Yeah, I think this is, I think, again, this is an area where as the community grows and changes, I think the expectations of our behavior needs to grow and change as well, including dog ownership. And yeah, again, that personal responsibility piece, like look after your best friend and your family and keep them safe from making a mistake with others in the community is how I approach that. And I'm happy to see our off-leash areas being used, but I think we have a long way to go to really address that and change this behavior. But call the question. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. All right. We don't have any minutes referred from the consent agenda. Any business arise? We had no business arising from minutes. We had no committee minutes or reports. Any notice of motion, council? Seeing none. We have a council in-camera announcement that's there on the agenda. I'll leave it at that. We had no unscheduled public attendance. Open question period. Any clarification related to agenda items from anyone in the audience? And I'm looking to see if there's anyone online. There's no hands in the building. Okay, thank you. Council or staff announcements. Who wants to get us started? Councillor French.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll share that Councillor Anderson and I met for about 45 minutes last weekend with residents of West Winds, sharing concerns about improving traffic safety on 3rd Avenue in front of Shannon Falls and the West Winds building. There is an email message in all of your inboxes that was delivered yesterday. And I believe that there is an effort to put together good old-fashioned pen and paper handwritten note or notes that will end up in our mailboxes here at Municipal Hall, because they're seniors and they do things old school. So out of that, I wanted to share that in that room of about 30 people or so, was some significant expertise and experience in road design and traffic management. And clearly some of the folks that were in that room had done a lot of research on how best to slow down traffic from design to engineering, all sorts of ideas of how traffic could be slowed on that section of 3rd Avenue where seniors are frequently crossing with walkers and all kinds of aids. And I have one more item coming up this weekend is the first ever Mosaic Mountain Heritage Festival, Saturday from 10 until 5 at Totem Hall. This is an event, one day featuring culture from around the world through food, music, dance, art, and stories. I invite council, if you have not got any plans between 10 and 5 on Friday, to swing by Totem Hall. It should be interesting.
Thank you. Any other?
That was Saturday. Apparently I said Friday.
Saturday. Okay. Thank you. It's all day Saturday, 10 to 5, you said? All right. Any other announcements? Okay. So I've a few, I think, sorry, I'll pull up my calendar here to make sure that my notes. This time of year is just great to be out with community at, or in the community at all the things that are happening. So on Wednesday, the 10th, The Chamber of Commerce had a great event up at the Sea to Sky Gondola, and it was great to spend an afternoon with the business community of Squamish in a very uniquely Squamish way up at the top of the gondola. Everyone knows the views there, and there was a band and just a great time to in a relaxed atmosphere to get to have conversations with different members of the business community about what's working, what isn't, what things are left to do. But it was a great afternoon. And in the past, the Chamber's done their Chamber After 5 events, which I know that lots of members of council, or likely all members of council, have attended over time. We went through a phase where they were all on Tuesdays, which is when we meet, and that's changing going forward. So we'll have more opportunities to engage with the business community, as that was a bit of a awkward scheduling piece for a big chunk of time. So I wanted to highlight that's coming. Of course, Amped in the Park on Thursday nights. I would encourage everybody who hasn't been to Amped in the Park on a Thursday night to do so. It's just it's become a staple of my summers, and frankly a good signal that summer is in fact happening. So those have been great. I do want to highlight. See, in July, I tend to think a lot about bicycles because of the Tour de France is on, and and it really made me think about. Right now, we've got a lot of really exciting things happening with our athletes, our cyclists. So I'll start with the return of Hot on Your Heels, which happened on July 5th, which is a women's only enduro event in Squamish. It took a few years off coming out of COVID, and then this year was a return. I've been involved with that event over the years, and it's just incredible to see the talent and how serious and how whimsical an event can be at the same time. That one is really something else. And I think that also we had Bailey Goldstone won the Canada Cup downhill at Kicking Horse, so our local downhill ripper, Bailey Goldstone there. And also Ellie Hopkins with her first enduro win in the U21 in Switzerland. And I think that these things are all connected. These things don't just happen in isolation. And sort of on top of that, these are things that are happened this month. And on top of that, our local ripper Sean Fincham won BC Bike Race, which is 7-day, really one of the most prestigious mountain bike stage races in the world. And sorry, I have the result here. It's something like he won by 30 after 10 hours and 41 minutes of racing. He won by 38.3 seconds over his teammate, with a distant third of over 12 minutes back. So really a tight race to the finish. And I think this is the first time a Squamish local has won since Neil Kindry about a decade ago. And the fact we have multiple BC Bike Race winners in town is remarkable. But this is a big achievement for Sean, and I'd like to congratulate him on his efforts and really the whole cycling community. So there's my cycling themed update for July. And I have any other we're excited to hear your update, Councillor Pettigal. No, go ahead.
Well, you're talking about all these fantastic sort of elite level cyclists. As a non-elite level cyclist, I will say that I noticed this past week that the lines going up Highlands Way are now painted, the bike lane. And that was really exciting for me because I've been waiting for that. And I actually saw, in terms of safety, and we've talked about traffic safety, there's a car that had broken down. They did not block the bike lane. They had their four-way flashers on in the extra lane, but off the main lane. And I was just like, oh, this is perfect. And, someone's really paying attention to all the users of the road. And it was really fantastic to see. So kudos to whoever that driver was and for getting those lines painted and everything. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Okay. So That concludes our councillor staff announcements. We don't have a motion to close, so I'm looking for a motion to terminate. Councillor Hamilton, and I will second that and call the question. All in favor? Thank you, everybody. Good work tonight, and we'll